Chapter 2755. Beating Huang Ju up. Huang Ju let out a blood-curdling scream, but his reaction was extremely fast. After his right hand was blasted into a bloody mist, he kicked off with his right foot and retreated rapidly, pulling away from Zhuowen in an instant. All of this happened too quickly. Before anyone could react, they saw Huang Ju's right arm being crippled by Zhuowen. Huang Ju and Zhuowen were far away from each other. His eyes were filled with shock as he watched the white-clothed youth slowly walk out. His heart was trembling incessantly. He knew very well that Zhuowen's palm strike just now was too terrifying. It gave him a feeling that it was impossible to block or resist. The surrounding crowd fell silent. No one had expected that Huang Ju, who had originally held the absolute advantage, would suddenly have his advantage reversed. His right arm was so easily crippled by Zhuowen. Galaxy of Stars and Zhao Nianming, who were watching coldly from the sidelines, also revealed strange expressions. This was especially true for Galaxy of Stars. For the first time, her gaze fell on Zhuowen. Her eyes flickered, and no one knew what she was thinking. Zhao Nianming, on the other hand, looked at Zhuowen with fear. She knew her own strength very well. She and Huang Ju were both Half-Step Heaven's mandate masters, but in terms of strength, Huang Ju was still a level higher. If she were to fight Huang Ju, although she wouldn't lose miserably, she would definitely be at a disadvantage. However, Zhuowen had suddenly displayed such terrifying strength. In a single palm strike, he had crippled Huang Ju's right arm. Even in Zhao Nianming's eyes, this was inconceivable. At the same time, Zhao Nianming put herself in Huang Ju's shoes. If she were to stand in Huang Ju's shoes, she would probably be in an even worse state than him. Thinking of this, Zhao Nianming finally began to pay attention to Zhuowen and even fear him. She knew that this kid was really hiding his strength. The square was in an uproar. Zhuowen's move just now was indeed too sudden and too shocking for everyone. No one had expected that the ant-like existence that should have been easily dealt with by Huang Ju, who was just an ordinary character in their eyes, would counterattack and cripple Huang Ju's right arm in front of everyone's eyes. This guy is just lucky. Huang Ju must have underestimated this fella too much, so he gave this fella an opportunity. In the square, Shan Tianlong also saw this scene, frowned slightly, and muttered to himself in denial. Lu Long, who was standing behind Shan Tianlong, lowered his head, but the corners of his mouth curved into a smile. Shan Tianlong had never believed that he, Lu Long, was defeated by Zhuowen, and had even scolded him to his face. Now, Lu Long knew that as long as this Zhuowen displayed his true strength, which was comparable to the Galaxy of Stars, Shan Tianlong would have nothing to say even if he didn't believe it. At the front of the square, the upper echelons of the Huangji family were also stunned. Among them, the first head Huang Wu and second head Huang Shan exchanged a glance, and they both saw the strange look in each other's eyes. This Zhuowen is not simple. He actually hid his strength so deeply. Huang Wu said indifferently. Huang Shan nodded and said, "Big brother." Looking at this Zhuowen's strength, he should be stronger than Huang Ju, but in fact, his strength is limited. If it wasn't for Huang Ju's carelessness, Huang Ju's right hand wouldn't have been crippled like this. Huang Wu nodded. Huang Shan was right. The reason why Huang Ju's right hand was so easily crippled was mainly because this guy underestimated his opponent. If he didn't, Huang Ju's current situation wouldn't be so bad. Huang Wuqi's eyes were calm. He also glanced at Zhuowen and said, "Huang Ju will be eliminated soon. This Zhuowen is not simple. Wuqi, between this Zhuowen and Xinghe, who do you think is stronger?" Huang Wu chuckled and asked Huang Wuqi. Although Huang Wu was the head of the Huangji family, he usually cultivated in seclusion when he had nothing to do. He rarely took care of the Huangji family's matters. He had already noticed that the Galaxy of Stars' talent and strength were very strong. However, Huang Wuqi was basically in charge of the Galaxy of Stars. In the Huangji family, the only one who truly understood the Galaxy of Stars was probably Huang Wuqi. Therefore, when it came to the Galaxy of Stars, Huang Wu couldn't help but ask Huang Wuqi. Huang Wuqi revealed a rare smile and said, "Xinghe has never shown his true strength from the beginning to the end. In front of Xinghe, this Zhuowen is just a slightly bigger stepping stone. He's not worth mentioning." Huang Wu and Huang Shan smiled. They thought the same in their hearts. They had placed too much hope in the Galaxy of Stars. They believed that the Galaxy of Stars was destined to be the second Huang Wuqi of the Huangji family. In fact, a large part of the reason why they had gone through so much trouble to hold the High God Assembly this time was actually for the Galaxy of Stars. They wanted the Galaxy of Stars to use the High God Assembly to break through to the second step Dao validation in one fell swoop. This would shake the entire Huangji family and spread the news among the other Dao palaces. It could be said that this time they were building momentum for the Galaxy of Stars. The High God Assembly was also a large stage specially prepared for the Galaxy of Stars. Although Huangju was also a direct disciple, in their eyes, Huangju was far less important than the Galaxy of Stars. In their plan, Huangju was just a stepping stone for the Galaxy of Stars to advance to a higher realm and build momentum. Even if Huangju was eliminated by Zhuowen, they didn't feel much. The atmosphere around the Sun Moon Mountain was also very quiet. There were only a dozen or so cultivators left here. They all looked at Zhuowen in shock. They knew that they had underestimated this white-robed young man, Zhuowen. "What kind of move did you use just now?" Huang Ju and Zhuowen looked at each other from afar and asked with a slightly trembling voice. Zhuowen's eyes were indifferent. He didn't answer Huang Ju's question. Instead, he took a step forward and continued to rush towards Huang Ju. The killing intent in his eyes seemed to have materialized. The palm strike that Zhuowen blasted out just now was actually the power of the sky-splitting blade. However, he didn't fully display the sky-splitting blade and only used a small part of it. If he had fully displayed the sky-splitting blade, Huang Ju wouldn't have just lost an arm. Instead, his whole body would have been torn to pieces by the sky-splitting blade. Feeling Zhuowen's terrifying killing intent, Huang Ju's heart trembled. He knew that this guy really wanted to kill him. Waning sun on the sea. The moment he approached Huang Ju, Zhuowen immediately used the space-time divine ability. The endless space-time sea covered the two of them, firmly wrapping them inside. A purple sun above the sea, under Zhuowen's control, suddenly fell and crushed towards Huang Ju in the center of the space-time sea. In the space-time sea, Huang Ju's reaction and actions were limited. In addition, Huang Ju's right hand was injured by the sky-splitting blade and basically couldn't use it. This reduced Huang Ju's strength too much. Now, Huang Ju was basically being suppressed by Zhuowen. Chapter 2756. Zhao Nianming seeing Huang Ju being suppressed by Zhuowen, many sighed, knowing that Huang Ju's defeat was certain. Galaxy of Stars watched the battle between Zhuowen and Huang Ju indifferently. He didn't intervene, instead moving towards the other cultivators. He planned to get rid of the remaining eyesores before dealing with Zhuowen. Zhao Nianming also had the same idea. Soon, Huang Xinghe and Zhao Nianming dealt with the remaining cultivators. Zhuowen and Huang Ju's battle wasn't over yet. However, Huang Ju was in imminent danger, like a taut string that could snap at any moment. "Junior brother Xinghe, your fourth brother is in danger. Aren't you going to help?" Zhao Nianming stared at Galaxy of Stars, pretending to be relaxed. There were only the four of them left near Sun Yueyao Mountain. Zhuowen was still fighting Huang Ju. Zhao Nianming knew that if Galaxy of Stars didn't help Huangju, she would be his next target. Zhao Nianming had gained a lot and reached the half-step Heavenswell realm, but she still wasn't confident in facing Galaxy of Stars. Huang Xinghe placed his hands behind his back and glanced at the battlefield on Zhuo Wen's side. Everyone here is my enemy except me. Huangju might be my fourth brother, but he's also my target. Why should I help my enemy? Zhao Nianming's gaze turned serious. He looked at Galaxy of Stars and said, Junior brother Xinghe, that Zhuowen isn't simple. I'm sure you've seen how he crippled Huangju. That's no ordinary power. I think it's best if we deal with Zhuowen first, then fight it out. That's the wisest choice. Galaxy of Stars smiled faintly. Do you think I can't tell? That Zhuowen is still hiding his strength, but no matter how strong he is, he's just a paper tiger in front of me. At this point, the Galaxy of Stars took a step forward. The aura on his body seemed to be able to swallow the sun and moon and overturn the mountains. It was vast and powerful. With each step the Galaxy of Stars took, his aura grew stronger. His vast aura seemed to break through the horizon, surpassing that of a half-step Heaven's Mandate Lord. When Galaxy of Stars took 9 steps, his aura reached its peak. It was as if he had broken through some kind of shackle. He became unbridled, arrogant, and peerless. Zhao Nianming continuously retreated, but her pretty face was completely pale. Her voice trembled as she said, You broke through? The Galaxy of Stars had his hands behind his back. He was like a peerless divine sword that had been unsheathed. His aura seemed to break through the horizon, and the wind and clouds changed color. At this moment, it was as if the Galaxy of Stars was the entire sky. Zhuowen, who had originally trapped Huangju in the space-time ocean and planned to slowly torture Huangju to death, also sensed the aura that was as vast as the sky. He looked at the Galaxy of Stars not far away in surprise. He hadn't expected the Galaxy of Stars to break through to the Heaven's Mandate Lord level. With the Galaxy of Stars' terrifying talent, he could already defeat ordinary Heaven's Mandate Lords when he was at the peak of the Primordial Chaos Lord level. Now that he had broken through to the Heaven's Mandate Lord level, his strength was even more unfathomable. He was probably comparable to the average Lord of Profound Secrets. Even if an Eternal Overlord came in person, the Galaxy of Stars' strength might be enough to defeat him, but there was still a chance he could preserve his life. After all, the difference between an Eternal Overlord and a Heaven's Mandate Lord was too great. In front of an Eternal Overlord, a Heaven's Mandate Lord was like an ant that could be killed with a single slap. But the Galaxy of Stars was no ordinary person. After becoming a Heaven's Mandate Lord, he had the chance to survive an Eternal Overlord. Even Zhuowen had to take such an opponent seriously. Of course, if Zhuowen used his full strength, he believed that no matter how heaven-defying the Galaxy of Stars was, he would still be able to destroy him. But this also meant that Zhuowen would have to reveal some of his trump cards, and in front of so many people. In the square, after Huang Xinghe revealed his aura as the Master of Destiny, an uproar broke out like a tsunami. Noise, excitement, and exclamations rose and fell one after another, lingering in the ears. As expected of the number 1 genius of our Huangji clan, he's already become a Heaven's Mandate Lord. The 5th prince has only cultivated for a few hundred years. He's a true genius. That's right. The 5th prince will definitely be the final winner this time. Once he wins, he'll be able to receive the ancestral shaman parasite's blessing. At that time, the 5th prince's cultivation will probably rise to another level. It won't be impossible for him to become a profound overlord. Everyone was discussing this matter. They found it inconceivable, but also found it reasonable. Even the law enforcement patriarch was shocked. Brother Joie has already done his best this time, but it's already amazing that he was able to take second place. At this moment, Chen Efe and the others had returned to the enforcement elders group. Chen Efe looked at the image displayed in the sun-moon demonic mirror and spoke softly. The enforcement elder nodded. Zhuowen had indeed made the Hall of Beheadings and Executions shine. At the same time, the enforcement elder rejoiced that Zhuowen was able to represent the Hall of Beheadings and Executions in this high god assembly. If it weren't for Zhuowen, all the disciples of the Hall of Beheadings and Executions wouldn't have been able to enter the top 100. Galaxy of Stars is indeed a genius, but Zhuowen isn't bad either. As long as he's given enough time, Zhuowen's cultivation will reach the same level as the Galaxy of Stars. I'm afraid the Galaxy of Stars won't be a match for Zhuowen, the enforcement elder said in a deep voice. Chen Efe and the others nodded. After all, Zhuowen's cultivation was too low. He was only a Tao origin master, but he was able to defeat Huang Ju, a half-step heaven's mandate lord. From this, one could see how strong and profound Zhuowen's potential was. Although the enforcement elder and the others believed in Zhuowen's strength, they still subconsciously believed that Galaxy of Stars wouldn't be a match for the Galaxy of Stars after discovering that Zhuowen had become a heaven's mandate lord. The Galaxy of Stars quietly floated above the Sun-Moon Mountain. His aura was majestic, as if he could swallow the sun and the moon. Zhao Nianming, do you still want to fight me? Huang Xinghe lifted his starry eyes, exuding a peerless aura as he spoke. His magnetic voice had a strange attraction to it, carrying with it an unquestionable authority. Zhao Nianming's pretty face turned pale. She smiled wryly and said, "Fifth Prince, even if you haven't become a Heaven's Mandate Lord, I still don't have the confidence to be your opponent. Now that you've become a Heaven's Mandate Lord, I'm like an ant before you. However, I'm not willing to surrender without a fight. Although I know I'm not a match for you, I still want to try." With that, Zhao Nianming opened her jade-like palm and gently clenched it. A red paper umbrella appeared in the center of her palm. "This is my strongest attack. I want to see how big the gap is between us." Chapter 2757. The Galaxy of Stars of the Destined Master. When the red paper umbrella was about 100 feet away from Huang Xinghe, the paper umbrella suddenly opened. Then, red paper umbrellas that were also opened appeared in the surroundings. It was as if the red paper had withered and fallen, filling the air. This scene was like blood, beautiful and strange, but hiding a peerless killing intent. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Within the red paper umbrella boundary, the red surface of the paper umbrellas was torn apart, revealing the eerie ribs. From afar, these ribs looked like piles of white bones, like the bones of a human hand. Then, these ribs shot out, densely packed, and pierced towards the Galaxy of Stars in the center. The Galaxy of Stars smiled coldly and slowly reached out with her right hand. She spun in front of her and then clenched her fist. Suddenly, the surrounding ribs all stopped in midair. The Galaxy of Stars was like the god of this world. She controlled the laws and energy around her and was invulnerable. Huang Xinghe calmly flew out of the umbrella rib in the air and headed towards Zhao Nianming. He grabbed at the air with his right hand, and an invisible hand formed around Zhao Nianming, grabbing Zhao Nianming's entire body. Zhao Nianming struggled, but found that the invisible hand was too strong. Even with her strength, she couldn't break free. She could only barely prevent herself from being squeezed to death. What is a destined master? Know your destiny, know the heavens and the earth. In this space, I am the heavens, I am the fate. Every living thing that enters my heaven is not in your hands, but mine. Huang Xinghe's indifferent voice resounded faintly, and then Zhuowen suddenly clenched his right hand. Zhao Nianming immediately let out a miserable shriek as he was crushed to pieces. Both his body and soul had been destroyed. From beginning to end, the Galaxy of Stars had only used one move to kill Zhao Nianming. Everyone in the square was moved. After the Galaxy of Stars became a destined master, the strength she displayed was too terrifying. How could an ordinary master of destiny be so terrifying? It was as if the Galaxy of Stars represented the will of heaven and earth. His strength was unfathomable. This is the real heaven's pride. This is the real destiny. The future achievements of the Galaxy of Stars are limitless. The Huangji family has Huang Wuqi in the past and the Galaxy of Stars in the future. The rise of the family is just around the corner. In the square, many cultivators were secretly admiring Huang Xinghe's strength and talent, and they were impressed by him. Zhao Nianming walked out of the central tower dejectedly. After returning to the Hall of Smoke, her beautiful eyes stared at the sun-moon demon mirror. This time, she accepted her defeat wholeheartedly. The Galaxy of Stars was indeed too abnormal. She didn't even have the qualifications to struggle before she was killed by the Galaxy of Stars. There were only 3 people left in Sun and Moonyao Mountain. They were Galaxy of Stars, Zhuowen, and Huangju. However, Huangju was on the verge of death at this moment. His consciousness was blurred, and he wasn't far from death. The Galaxy of Stars had his hands behind his back and didn't make a move. Instead, he watched with interest as Zhuowen continued to torture Huangju. It wasn't until Zhuowen seized the opportunity to kill Huangju that the Galaxy of Stars finally spoke. I remember that your name is Zhuowen. I know that you are still hiding a part of your strength. Your strength should be above Huangju and Zhao Nianming, but you are still not qualified to be my opponent. Having said that, the Galaxy of Stars exuded an incomparable confidence. He raised his head high and revealed an arrogant expression. The Galaxy of Stars indeed saw that Zhuowen wasn't simple, but he was even more confident in himself. No matter how strong Zhuowen was, how could he be his opponent? Especially after becoming a Heaven's Will Master, he basically didn't put any cultivators in his eyes. Oh, I'm not qualified to be your opponent. The corner of Zhuowen's mouth revealed a mocking smile. He looked at the arrogant Galaxy of Stars and repeated the words of the Galaxy of Stars just now. The Galaxy of Stars frowned slightly. He was extremely displeased when he heard the mockery in Zhuowen's words. In his opinion, after he said those words, the white-clothed youth in front of him should have tactfully admitted defeat, and then killed himself in front of him, lest he had to do more and waste more time. What? Do you still think you can fight me? The Galaxy of Stars' voice became cold and sarcastic. Zhuowen shook his head and said, "You're wrong. It's not that I have the strength to fight you, but how many moves can you take from me?" The Galaxy of Stars was stunned when he heard Zhuowen's words. He thought that he had misheard and couldn't help but ask again, "What did you just say? How many moves do you think I can take from you? Don't you think too highly of yourself? You actually have no sense of shame to say such nonsense. Now, you still have the chance. Kill yourself in front of me." The Galaxy of Stars was still arrogant. He looked coldly at Zhuowen, as if his words were a form of forgiveness for Zhuowen. Everyone in the square was in an uproar. Of course, their eyes fell on the Galaxy of Stars. As for Zhuowen, not many people paid attention to him. In their opinion, even if the Galaxy of Stars hadn't become a master of destiny, Zhuowen still wouldn't be a match for the Galaxy of Stars. Now that the Galaxy of Stars had become a master of destiny, his strength had increased by a lot. Zhuowen didn't have the slightest chance of winning against the Galaxy of Stars. The final winner of the High God Assembly was undoubtedly the galaxy of stars. As for Zhuowen, in the eyes of many people, he had become a clown. Especially after Zhuowen's arrogant words, many people began to mock Zhuowen for overestimating himself. Xing, he should be able to become a master of mystery this time. After this high god assembly, I plan to personally guide him. I hope he can become an eternal master as soon as possible. Huang Wu laughed heartily. His gaze became much gentler as he looked at the galaxy of stars on the sun-moon demonic mirror. He was very satisfied with the galaxy of stars' talent and improvement. His momentum was much faster than Huang Wuqi's in the past. Wuqi, you have to work harder too. I think you're going to break through to the half-step creator stage soon. If you can successfully become a half-step creator stage, you'll be the fourth head of the Huang Ji family. You'll have the same status as me. Huang Wu looked at Huang Wuqi with a gratified expression. Under the envious gazes of the crowd, Huang Wuqi bowed to Huang Wu meticulously and said, "Thank you for your kindness, father. Wuqi definitely won't let you down." Huang Wu was very satisfied with Huang Wuqi's performance. Then he looked at the sun-moon demonic mirror again and said, whether he can become a master of mystery or not, it'll depend on Xing He's luck. The opportunity to be enlightened by the ancestral sorcerer's parasite is rare, but there's no guarantee that he'll succeed. Big brother, you don't have to be so harsh. After all, Xing, he is only cultivated for a short time. Even if he doesn't become a master of mystery, he's not far from it. Huang Shan laughed. Whether it was Huang Wu, Huang Shan, or Huang Wuqi, none of them took Zhuowen seriously. Chapter 2758. Instant kill. Forget it. It's a waste of time to talk nonsense with an ant like you. Since you're not going to commit suicide, I'll have to do it myself. Galaxy of Stars was getting impatient. He didn't want to waste his time talking to Zhuowen. He took a step forward and punched the air with his right hand. Galaxy of Stars was indeed powerful. His attack seemed to cover the entire world, and he seemed to be the ruler of this world, omnipotent. Zhuowen stood in the air. When Galaxy of Stars attacked, an endless gale swept across, and the sky changed color. The fierce gale blew past, blowing Zhuowen's bangs. His shoulder-length black hair fluttered in the wind, making him look like a chivalrous hero. At the same time, everyone in the square outside was in an uproar. Their eyes were filled with anticipation. They were looking forward to Galaxy of Stars killing Zhuowen in one move and obtaining the final victory of the High God Assembly. Zhuowen looks calm, but he must be scared to death. Look at him. He's not even moving. That's for sure. The fifth prince is too heaven-defying. He was already terrifying when he was at the peak of primordial chaos master. Now that he's become a heaven's mandate master, no one in the younger generation can be his match. Although Zhuowen is strong, he's just a primordial Tao master. The gap between them is too big. He's bound to lose. Zhuowen should have surrendered earlier. Why is he still holding on? I don't understand. Now that he's killed by the fifth prince, he's lost all his face. The discussion was like a roaring wave. Most of them were ridiculing Zhuowen for overestimating himself and praising how powerful Huang Xinghe was. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Huang Xinghe's attack arrived as scheduled, pouring down on Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen's eyes flashed like lightning. When Huang Xinghe's attack was about to land, he also moved. Zhuowen's palm was like a blade. On the surface of his palm, a blazing white light was condensed. The white light contained an ancient and terrifying aura. Activate Qi Blade. Zhuowen's hand blade slashed out fiercely, and Huang Xinghe's attack, which was accumulating power, was completely destroyed. At the same time, Zhuowen's hand chopped out again. The white light attached to the surface of his palm soared into the sky, forming a terrifying crescent-shaped blade Qi. Zhuowen did not hold back this time. The galaxy of stars was not simple. If he held back, he would be the one at a disadvantage. Moreover, the ancestral wizard Goo Worm was right in front of him. He could feel the ancestral wizard Goo Worm's aura more and more. He knew that as long as he completely destroyed the galaxy of stars, he would be able to come into contact with the ancestral wizard Goo Worm. As long as he could come into contact with the venomous worms, he would have a way to completely subdue them and integrate them into his Pangu's sacred body. This would allow his Pangu's sacred body to advance to the 4-star realm. Once his Pangu's sacred body advanced to the 4-star realm, Zhuowen knew that his Pangu's sacred body would undergo a true transformation. Its strength would increase by thousands of times. When that time came, second-step Dao validation cultivators would not be able to hurt him. Zhuowen had already inquired about the strength distribution of the Huangji family. It was said that there was only one third-step Dao validation expert in the Huangji family, and that was the first head, Huang Wu. Moreover, Huang Wu was only an early-stage creator. As for the second head, Huang Shan, and the third head, Huang Lin, they were only half-step creators. There was still a big gap between them and the third-step Dao validation. If Zhuowen could advance to the 4-star Pangu's sacred body, although his strength might not be as strong as the second head, and the third head Huang Lin, with the terrifying physical body of the Pangu's sacred body, Huang Shan and Huang Lin would not be able to kill Zhuowen. When that time came, the only threat would be the first head Huang Wu. As long as Huang Wu did not make a move, Zhuowen was confident that he could successfully escape from the Huangji family when they fell out with him. It could be said that the ancestral voodoo parasite hidden in the sun-moon demonic mirror was what Zhuowen relied on to leave the Huangji family. As long as he could obtain the ancestral voodoo parasite and increase his strength, Zhuowen would not be afraid of much in the Huangji family. Therefore, Zhuowen would not dawdle in this final battle. He wanted to end it quickly. Galaxy of Stars' talent was indeed amazing. However, in Zhuowen's eyes, it was nothing. After all, with Zhuowen's true strength, he was not even afraid of an eternal overlord. Why would he be afraid of a mere destiny master like Galaxy of Stars? The sky-splitting blade was as fast as lightning as it cut through the void and landed in front of Huang Xinghe at an extremely fast speed. At this moment, Galaxy of Stars' expression changed completely. He actually felt a life-and-death crisis from this blade light. This was the first time in his life that he felt such a crisis. How can this kid have such a terrifying move? This is simply against common sense. The thought flashed through Galaxy of Stars' mind. He immediately took out his natal artifact from his spirit ring and activated it with all his strength to block in front of him. Galaxy of Stars' natal artifact was a pair of spears. The spears were extremely strange. The surface of the spears was like a galaxy that constantly flowed, as if the sun, moon, and stars were circulating. Moreover, the aura of Galaxy of Stars' natal artifact was extremely powerful. It was actually a destiny artifact. Before Galaxy of Stars entered the sun-moon demonic mirror, he was only at the peak of primordial chaos overlord. With such a cultivation level, he actually possessed a destiny artifact. This was definitely extremely wealthy. The moment Galaxy of Stars placed the spears in front of him, a huge galaxy appeared around him and rapidly flowed. Kacha! Unfortunately, when the sky-splitting blade reached the galaxy's virtual image, it was like a hot knife through butter. It directly shattered the galaxy, and the seemingly indestructible spears immediately broke. Galaxy of Stars looked at all of this in disbelief. He immediately watched as the sky-splitting blade broke the spears and cut him in half like lightning. The last thing Galaxy of Stars saw was the young man in white not far away. He slowly landed on the Sun-Moon Mountain with an expectant look in his eyes. It was as if he was looking forward to what was in the Sun-Moon Mountain. From the beginning to the end, the young man in white didn't even look at him. It was as if he was just a very insignificant ant that wasn't worth looking at. Galaxy of Stars looked at Zhuowen's disregard and remembered his various performances in front of this person. He was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood and completely lost consciousness. On the other hand, the square was completely silent. After Huang Xinghe was killed in one move, the noisy discussions from before had completely quieted down. The expressions on everyone's faces were very similar. They were all lifeless and absent-minded. At the same time, there was a trace of disbelief. The scene on the Sun-Moon demonic mirror disappeared after Galaxy of Stars was killed, and only Zhuowen was left. The final victor had been decided, and the battle royale was over. Naturally, the Sun-Moon demonic mirror didn't need to show the next scene. Huang Wu, Huang Shan, Huang Wuqi, and the other higher-ups of the Huang Ji family, who originally didn't care, were all petrified. They were stunned in place. Even the smile on Huang Wu's face became completely stiff. They didn't expect that, in their opinion, this battle was without suspense. It should have been the final victory of Galaxy of Stars. However, in the end, there was an unexpected reversal. Chapter 2759. Go Mangu. How is this possible? Huang Ju also saw this scene and stood up abruptly. He couldn't control his voice and couldn't help but cry out. Zhao Nianming, Lu Long, Ku Tiancheng, and all the other cultivators who had fought against Zhuowen stood up as well. The disbelief on their faces was more intense than the others. After all, before the battle between Zhuowen and Huang Xinghe, the strength that Zhuowen displayed could only be said to be passable. Although he was stronger than most cultivators, there was a limit to his strength. But now, in the final battle, Zhuowen suddenly erupted and defeated the Galaxy of Stars that everyone feared. What kind of strength did he need to achieve such a feat? This kid hid his strength too well. I can't believe his strength is so terrifying. Huang Ju's eyes were gloomy as he muttered to himself in a low voice. On the other hand, the people from the Hall of Penal Law were pleasantly surprised when they came to their senses. One must know that Zhuowen was representing the Hall of Beheadings this time around. Now that Zhuowen had eliminated even Huang Xinghe, there was no doubt that he was the number one. The reputation of the Hall of Beheadings and Punishments would definitely soar as well. When the Galaxy of Stars walked out of the central tower with a gloomy face, the quiet square once again erupted into an uproar and clamor. Originally, some people had some doubts about the final image shown by the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror. They did not believe that the Galaxy of Stars, who was so powerful, could be defeated by Zhuowen, who was only a Dao Yuan master. However, now that Huang Xinghe had finally appeared in front of everyone finally believed that the final scene of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror was real. Huang Xinghe had indeed lost, and he had been defeated in one move. In an instant, the discussion became even more intense. And this time, the focus of the discussion had changed from the Galaxy of Stars to Zhuowen. Everyone was discussing how Zhuowen did it. How could a Dao Yuan master's strength be so terrifying? The Galaxy of Stars listened to the discussion around him and felt humiliated. His eyes were filled with hatred. He hated that Zhuowen had brought such humiliation to him. Huang Wuqi came to Huang Xinghe's side and patted his shoulder. Xinghe, don't be disheartened. This time, it's Zhuowen's problem. I suspect that he has some extremely powerful treasure that can emit such a terrifying saber light. It's not something a Dao Yuan master can emit. Big brother, what do you mean? Huang Xinghe was startled and asked. This time, Huang Wuqi sent a voice transmission to Xinghe. That kid must have some big secret on him. Don't worry, Xinghe. Since he dared to steal something that belongs to him in the High God Assembly, we'll make sure he spits it all back out bit by bit. Furthermore, we'll make sure he pays us back double. The Galaxy of Stars translation nodded. At the same time, he also saw the obscure expressions on Huang Wu and Huang Shan's faces. He knew that what Huang Wuqi said was also what the first and second chiefs meant. The anger in the Galaxy of Stars translation calmed down a little when he thought of this. Zhuowen stood on the body of the Sun Moon Yao Mountain. The anticipation in his eyes intensified. He could feel that there was a powerful force in the depths of the Sun Moon Yao Mountain that was constantly approaching the surface of the mountain. He was no stranger to this force. It was the aura of the ancestral sorcerer venomous insects. Restore the broken mirror and use it to guide the ancestral sorcerer venomous insects. Zhuowen murmured in a low voice. He stomped his right foot and countless green lights burst out from his body. These green lights were the energy of the demonic mirror fragments that Zhuowen had absorbed. At this moment, the countless green lights were constantly converging and forming a huge demonic mirror image in the air. Zhuowen knew that this image was the clone of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. By relying on the clone, the ancestral sorcerer venomous insects would be able to leave the seal of the Sun-Moon Yao Mountain for a quarter of an hour. It was also for the victor to receive the ancestral sorcerer venomous insects' blessing during this quarter of an hour. When the moon demonic mirror image was restored, Zhuowen clearly felt that the ancestral sorcerer venomous insects' power in the depths of the Sun-Moon Yao Mountain seemed to be throbbing and awakening. Moreover, it was rushing towards the mountain at an even faster speed. Boom! A thunderous sound resounded, and the entire Sun-Moon Yao Mountain trembled violently. Zhuowen hurriedly floated in midair and looked at the Sun-Moon Yao Mountain that was trembling more and more violently. Finally, the Sun-Moon Yao Mountain cracked open. On the body of the Sun-Moon Yao Mountain, a huge crack appeared. At this moment, the complicated patterns on the surface of the entire Sun-Moon Yao Mountain lit up with a dazzling light. Zhuowen's gaze fell on the depths of the huge crack. He could clearly sense that the ancestral sorcerer venomous insect's aura was coming from the crack. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air was heard. Soon after, a green insect jumped out from the crack and appeared in front of Zhuowen. The green insect was about half the size of a palm and looked like an ordinary green caterpillar. The moment Zhuowen saw the caterpillar, he knew that it was the ancestral sorcerer venomous insects. Moreover, after receiving the inheritance of the Zhurong venomous insects, he could tell at a glance that the ancestral sorcerer venomous insects belonged to Gomang, one of the 12 ancestral sorcerers. Gomang was also known as the Wood God, and was the ancestor of the revival of all things. According to legend, the sun rose from Fusang every morning, and the divine tree belonged to Gomang. The place where the sun rose also belonged to Gomang. He was an extremely powerful ancestral sorcerer. Moreover, Gomang was the opposite of Zhurong. Zhurong was in charge of the power of fire and had amazing destructive power, while Gomang was in charge of the power of life and could heal the wounded and restore vitality. Zhuowen knew that if he could get the Gomang venomous insects, not only could he advance his Pangu's sacred body to the 4-star level, but his Pangu's sacred body's recovery power would also reach an extremely terrifying level because of the characteristics of the Gomang venomous insects. After all, Gomang was in charge of the power of life. The Pangu's sacred body that had been integrated with the Gomang venomous insects would naturally have an unprecedentedly strong vitality and would definitely be more resistant to attacks than before. Roar! The moment the Gomang venomous insects flew out of the crack, they let out an earth-shattering roar. Immediately, Zhuowen found that a huge shadow had appeared behind the Gomang venomous insects. The shadow was a weirdo with a human face and a bird's body. He was hundreds of feet tall and had a pair of green wings that seemed to be able to cover the sky and the sun. Under the feet of this weirdo with a human face and a bird's body, there was a giant dragon under each foot. He had a peerless charm and was insufferably arrogant. Zhuowen was no stranger to this shadow. It was the ancestral sorcerer, Gomang. However, the real Gomang had already fallen. The one that appeared in front of Zhuowen now was just the Gomang venomous insects showing the appearance of Gomang when he was alive. Its purpose was to frighten the enemy. Die! Zhuowen sneered and suddenly stretched out his right hand. The power of the Pangu's sacred body poured out mercilessly, as if it could swallow the sun and the moon and explode the starry sky. The Gomang venomous insects felt the familiar aura and let out another roar. There was a trace of retreat in the roar. The Pangu's sacred body had a great restraining effect on the 12 ancestral sorcerers, not to mention that this was not the real ancestral sorcerer, but just a venomous insect inside the ancestral sorcerer. Chapter 27, 60. Sealed. Bang, bang, bang. Although the Gomang parasite was a little afraid of the Pangu's sacred body, it was not a fool. It could feel that the Pangu's sacred body cultivated by the human in front of it was still very weak. After hesitating for a moment, the Gomang parasite did not retreat in the end. Instead, it rushed out and attacked Zhuowen directly. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, the Gomang goo worm and Zhuowen clashed. Terrifying shockwaves spread out, as if the surrounding space was about to shatter, unable to withstand it. Zhuowen was suppressed in an instant. The Gomang parasite was much stronger than Zhuowen. However, the moment Zhuowen came into contact with the Gomang parasite, he could clearly feel that the energy emitted by the Gomang parasite was extremely pure. He absorbed all of it, causing his strength to continuously increase. Zhuowen knew that this should be the parasite's empowerment that Huangwu had mentioned. In fact, what Zhuowen did not know was that the parasite's empowerment did not require him to be close to it. As long as Zhuowen left the range of the Sun and Moon Mountain, the parasite would not be able to come out. At that time, the parasite's energy would be continuously transmitted into his body. This was common knowledge in the Huangji family. Everyone knew how to make the parasite's empowerment. However, Zhuowen was not a disciple of the Huangji family, so he did not know about this. Fortunately, Zhuowen had cultivated the Pangu's sacred body, which could restrain the ancestral sorcery venomous insects. Otherwise, he would be courting death and would be in great danger if he were to fight the ancestral sorcery venomous insects head-on. The battle between Zhuowen and the parasite became more and more intense. Zhuowen fell into extremely dangerous situations several times. Fortunately, the parasite's energy continued to pour into his body. His aura continued to soar, while the parasite's energy continued to decrease. Under this situation, Zhuowen was barely able to hold on. Moreover, as time continued to pass, Zhuowen began to slowly gain the upper hand. A quarter of an hour passed quickly. Zhuowen clearly noticed that the Gomang goo before him was constantly struggling and roaring. Its voice was filled with unwillingness. Taking a closer look, countless chains had appeared in the depths of the rift at some point in time. The surface of these chains was covered in dense vein patterns that were very similar to the strange veined patterns on the surface of Sun Moon Yao Mountain. It should also be a kind of seal. The instant these chains appeared, their speed was extremely fast. They flew over and locked onto the Gomang goo worm, then pulled it towards the depths of the crack. The Gomang goo was unwilling to give up. It struggled and growled. If you want to leave this place, then merge into my body. I have inherited the body of Pangu, and my potential is far greater than that of ancestor Magus Gomang. You won't be humiliated if you follow me, Zhuowen suddenly said. The Go Mangu worm was still struggling, but after hearing Zhuowen's words, the Go Mangu worm's struggle became much more intense. Hurry up and promise me, or it will be too late, Zhuowen hurriedly said. The Go Mangu worm also knew that the situation was urgent. It had been sealed here for too long, and it did not want to be sealed in this dark place anymore. It wanted to get out. It had indeed felt the aura of the sacred body of Pangu on Zhuowen, but Zhuowen's cultivation was too low, so it had been resisting and did not want to give in. Now, it only had two choices. It could either be sealed on Sun Moon Yao Mountain forever again, or be taken out by the human who cultivated the sacred body of Pangu. The Go Mangu worm quickly made a choice, and it chose the latter. The Go Mangu worm turned into a stream of light and rushed straight into Zhuowen's body. The moment the Go Mangu worm rushed into his body, the endless chains wrapped around Zhuowen like 10,000 snakes coming out of their holes. Zhuowen wanted to retreat, but he was trapped by these chains, and he did not feel good. Bang! 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 Zhuowen unleashed the power of the sacred body of Pangu and continuously punched out. Each punch was able to break a chain. However, there were too many chains, and Zhuowen's crazy punches were just a drop in the bucket. In just an instant, Zhuowen's entire body was bound by the chains, and then he was dragged into the depths of the crack. After Zhuowen was dragged into the depths of the fissure that had appeared on Yao Mountain slowly closed, as if nothing had happened just now. 3 days later, many of the cultivators in the square frowned and looked at the sun-moon demonic mirror, which was still motionless, and Zhuowen, who was still sitting cross-legged, with some doubts. At this moment, Zhuowen was sitting under the sun-moon demonic mirror with his eyes closed as if he had fallen into a deep coma, and he was motionless. The sun-moon demonic mirror was also motionless, and there was no image on the mirror at all. What's going on? 3 days have passed, and the Flourishing God Conference should have ended, and the ancestral sorcery, venomous insects, blessing time is only 15 minutes. Logically speaking, this kid should have come out by now, but he's still unconscious and motionless. Everyone was shocked and felt that it was inconceivable. Could it be that something happened to Zhuo when in the sun-moon demonic mirror? Even Huang Wu and the others were surprised. Clearly, they didn't expect this to happen. Is the enforcer here? Huang Wu thought for a moment, then suddenly shouted toward the square. The enforcer elder quickly came out and said respectfully, "Greetings, First Master." Huang Wu nodded and said, "Zhuowen is from your Hall of Penal Law. Now that something like this has happened, go and see what's going on." The enforcer elder hurriedly cupped his hands and agreed. Then, with a belly full of doubts, he walked toward Zhuowen, who was under the central tower. The enforcer elder checked on Zhuowen for a while, and his expression changed slightly. "Enforcer, what's wrong?" Huang Wu could not help but ask when he saw the change in the enforcer elder's expression. Zhuowen's aura is still there, but it's extremely weak. Moreover, the fluctuation of his soul is so weak that it's almost negligible. It's as if he's on the verge of death, the enforcer elder said with a sigh. Huang Wu showed a strange expression. He took a step forward and arrived in front of Zhuowen. He placed his right hand on Zhuowen's right wrist and checked it for a moment. Then he put it down and said indifferently, "This kid is dead. Although I don't know the reason, it's possible that something happened to him in the sun-moon demonic mirror. That's why he's like this now." Chen Fa and the others also came. They could not believe it, and grief filled their faces. Zhuowen had obtained the final victory of the Flourishing God Conference. How could he die without knowing the reason? It was too strange. Everyone in the square began to discuss spiritedly. Quite a number of people were shaking their heads and feeling regretful. There were even more people who were guessing in their hearts what exactly Zhuo Wen had encountered in the sun-moon demon mirror to actually die at the final moment of victory. There's no need to guess. This kid died because he used a desperate attack to kill me. It was an extremely terrifying secret technique that sacrificed his life force. That's why I was killed in one move. Chapter 2761. Promoted to 4 stars, so that's how it is. No wonder he's so powerful, even though he's only a Dao Yuan master. He could kill the 5th prince instantly. The 5th prince should be right. Zhuo Wen's strength is indeed ridiculously powerful. This is the only explanation that makes sense. But even so, that Zhuo Wen is really amazing to be able to master such a powerful secret technique. After all, even if it's a desperate technique, an ordinary Dao Yuan master wouldn't be able to kill the Master of Destiny in an instant. As soon as Huang Xinghe finished speaking, the people in the square started discussing like a tidal wave. Everyone felt that Huang Xinghe's reason was the most reasonable. Elder of Law Enforcement had a look of pity on his face. He had not expected Zhuo Wen to end up like this. This was something he had not foreseen. First Master, Zhuo Wen is a disciple of the Hall of Penal Law. Since he's unfortunately fallen, I beg you to allow me to bring him back to the Law Enforcement Hall. The Law Enforcement Elder cupped his fists and said to Huang Wu. Huang Wu's eyes flickered. He said calmly, "Sure. However, since he's fallen, I might have to adjust the rankings of this high god assembly. All the cultivators' rankings will be moved 1 place ahead. You don't have any objections, right?" The law enforcement elder was startled. Although he was unwilling, he could only nod helplessly. He knew that Huang Wu's words meant that Zhuo Wen's first place didn't count. The Galaxy of Stars, who was originally 2nd place, would be the final champion of the High God Assembly because of Zhuo Wen's death. This Zhuo Wen is really pitiful. He fought so hard for the first place, but now it's gone. He's really courting death. Not far away, Huang Ju naturally heard Huang Wu's announcement. He shook his head inwardly. He felt that Zhuo Wen was too stupid. He lost his life for the sake of ranking. The loss outweighed the gain. In the end, he lost both his life and wealth. Huang Wu said a few more polite words and then announced the end of the High God Assembly. The crowd gradually dispersed. "Elder, let me take care of Brother Zhuo's corpse." Chen Fa came to the side of the law enforcement elder and said in a deep voice. Patriarch of Law Enforcement nodded and sighed. "I'll leave it to you. The Hall of Penal Law owes Zhuo Wen a great debt of gratitude. Take good care of him. His aura is very weak, as if he could die at any moment." Chen Fa nodded. After a moment of hesitation, he said, "Elder, Brother Zhuo clearly isn't dead yet. Why did the first master say that he's dead and even take away his first place ranking?" Patriarch of Law Enforcement sighed and said, "Don't say that again. Otherwise, you'll get yourself killed. I'm guessing that the main purpose of this High God Assembly is for the 5th prince. The purpose is to let the 5th prince obtain the final benefits and obtain first place in the High God Assembly. If Zhuo Wen hadn't appeared out of nowhere, the 5th prince would have obtained first place in the High God Assembly. It's a pity that Zhuo Wen snatched the 5th prince's first place. If I'm not wrong, even if Zhuo Wen comes out unharmed, I'm afraid the Huangji family's higher-ups won't let him go." Chen Fa's heart trembled when he heard that. However, he didn't say anything. Instead, he quietly put away Zhuo Wen's corpse and cupped his fists at the law enforcement elder. "Elder, I'll bring Brother Zhuo back first. As long as Brother Zhuo is still alive, there's still a glimmer of hope." After speaking, Chen Fa turned around and left. The law enforcement elder looked at Chen Fa's back with a complicated gaze. In the end, he let out a long sigh and left with the disciples of the Hall of Beheadings and Executions. In the deep darkness, Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes. When he saw his surroundings, he felt bitter. He saw that there were dense chains all around him. The surface of these chains was engraved with complicated patterns, and the ends of these chains extended to all of Zhuowen's limbs and bones. They bound him tightly in the chains. Zhuowen wanted to move, but he found that the chains contained an extremely terrifying pressure. They firmly held him in place, making him motionless. It seems that because I've integrated with the Go-Mang parasite, the power of this seal thinks that I'm the Go-Mang parasite and sealed me here as well, Zhuowen thought to himself. However, Zhuowen wasn't particularly worried now. He knew that when he completely integrated with the power of the Go-Mang parasite and successfully advanced to the 4-star Pango Sacred Body, his Pango Sacred Body would undergo an unprecedented transformation. After the transformation, the Pango Sacred Body would be more skillful in using the Pango Banner. At that time, the profound meaning of the infinite primordial in the Pango Banner would be more powerful. As for the primordial chaos infinity, it was the profundities of restriction, and it had the ability to break through all techniques. Originally, the Hong-Meng Everlasting could not affect the seal around him because his Pango Sacred Body was too weak. However, when his Pango Sacred Body reached the 4-star level, its power would skyrocket, and the Hong-Meng Everlasting would be even more terrifying and powerful. Zhuowen didn't believe that primordial chaos everlasting wouldn't have any effect on the surrounding seal. Thinking of this, Zhuowen calmed down and began to silently absorb the power of the Go-Mang parasite in his body. At the same time, he began to circulate the Pango Sacred Body. This time, he must advance the Pango Sacred Body to 4 stars. Otherwise, he would really die here. 2 months later, in the pitch-black space, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, an ancient and powerful aura suddenly surged out from his body and swept out like a storm. Clang! Clang! The moment this aura erupted, the dense chains that bound Zhuowen around him trembled violently. The sound of metal chains colliding was extremely ear-piercing. This terrifying aura was still growing stronger, forming a reverse airflow. It floated behind Zhuowen and condensed into an incomparably huge figure. This figure was huge, and the visual effect was extremely terrifying. At a glance, it seemed that this figure had no end and was unreachable. Boom! Zhuowen suddenly threw out a punch, and a terrifying gale swept out. Countless chains continued to collide with each other, producing a dense and crisp sound. Within the range of several hundred feet from Zhuowen's punch, all the chains collapsed and turned into dust. The chains that were originally wrapped around Zhuowen's body were also shattered by his power at this moment. However, all of this was just a drop in the bucket. This place seemed to be a strange space. It was boundless, and was almost filled with these strange patterns of chains. The range of several hundred feet that he had shattered was not worth mentioning in this huge space. It was insignificant. However, there was also an advantage to this. Zhuowen had finally broken free from the shackles of these chains. At least, Zhuowen was now completely free and was not restrained. Chapter 2762. Sealed space. He could tell that this space was filled with the aura of Array Dao. It was a true sealed space. The so-called sealed space was created by a god Array Dao master with extremely high attainments in Array Dao. He had spent a lot of effort to isolate this space with countless Array Dao restrictions. Moreover, this space was completely composed of densely packed grand sealing arrays. Moreover, Zhuowen discovered that among the countless grand sealing arrays in this sealed space, the lowest level was Heaven's Mandate Array Dao, while the highest was Eternal Grand Sealing Array. Moreover, there wasn't just one Eternal Great Array formation. There were tens of thousands of them. Even if the Eternal Array Dao Master Yuan Hui who had been killed by Zhuowen, was trapped in this sealed space, he would have to spend a lot of energy and effort to escape from this place. Unless one's array skills had reached the legendary third step, the sealed space would not be able to trap such a divine array master at this level. Zhuowen's gaze turned solemn. His current array Dao level was too low. He was only a heavenly Dao array Dao master. With his current array Dao level, it was wishful thinking to escape from this sealed space. Of course, Zhuowen also had a corresponding advantage. He had mastered the profound meaning of the Panga banner, Primordial Chaos Infinity. This profound meaning was specially used to restrain grand sealing arrays. Although Zhuowen was now a heavenly Dao array Dao master, he could still break Heaven's mandate array Dao by relying on Primordial Chaos Infinity. There were countless grand sealing arrays in this sealed space. The lowest was Heaven's mandate grand sealing array, while the highest was Eternal grand sealing array. Now, he could rely on Primordial Chaos Infinity to break the Heaven's mandate grand sealing array. Zhuowen believed that with his talent, his array Dao level would improve as he continued to crack these array formations. If his array Dao level could reach the Primordial Chaos level, he would be able to crack eternal level array formations by relying on Primordial Chaos Everlasting. In addition, Zhuowen had obtained Master Yuan Hui's own understanding of the Dao of arrays. With such an ancient record of understanding, Zhuowen's cultivation of the Dao of arrays would naturally be much easier. For the next period of time, Zhuowen basically used Hong Meng Wuji to break the various sealing arrays. It took him half a year to crack all the Heaven's mandate grand arrays. In the process of cracking the formation, Zhuowen was constantly comprehending the formation Dao. Unknowingly, his formation Dao had a brand new breakthrough and reached the level of a primordial formation Dao master. After reaching the level of a primordial Dao array master, Zhuowen relied on the Hong Meng Wuji profound meaning to break the Xuanji seal array in the sealed space. As for Zhuowen, it took him a full 2 years to break through all of the profound grade sealing arrays. However, after cracking all the Xuanji seal arrays, his array Dao level did not naturally break through to the primordial chaos realm. Instead, he was still a little bit away from the primordial chaos realm. He had only reached the peak of the primordial Dao realm. After dealing with all the Xuanji seal arrays, Zhuowen stopped and took out the mysterious golden plate he had obtained from Master Yuan Hui. He began to comprehend the array Dao insights contained in the golden plate. Now, his array Dao level was too low. Even if he relied on Hong Meng Wuji, it was basically impossible to break the eternal grand sealing arrays. Therefore, he had to first break through to the primordial chaos realm and then use Hong Meng Wuji to break the eternal grand sealing arrays. Now, he was still a little bit away from reaching the primordial chaos realm. Therefore, he had to first break through to the primordial chaos realm before dealing with the remaining eternal grand sealing arrays in the sealed space. While Zhuowen was focused on dealing with the grand sealing arrays in the sealed space, news came from the Huangji clan. Third headmaster Huang Lin had returned from the 8 heavens to the eastern Dao domain of the Xianmi heavenly domain and had returned to the Huangji clan's headquarters. First headmaster Huang Wu, second headmaster Huang Shan, eldest prince Huang Wuji, and a group of higher-ups personally went out to welcome Huang Lin's return. Everyone was excited. They all knew that Huang Lin's purpose in going to the 8 heavens was to investigate the cause of death of Master Yuan Hui and third prince Huang Zhe. Now that Huang Lin had returned, it might mean that he had brought back the cause of death of Master Yuan Hui and third prince Huang Zhe. By then, they would know who the real murderer was. Huang Wu and Huang Shan were more anxious than the others. They didn't care about the death of third prince Huang Zhe. However, Master Yuan Hui was the only eternal grand formation master in the Huangji clan. His status was high, and he had a pivotal position in the Huangji clan. Huang Wu and the others couldn't let such a powerful existence die just like that. They had to find the real culprit and make him pay with his blood. There were only 5 people in the magnificent hall. Among the 5 people, Huang Wu, Huang Shan, and Huang Wuji sat in the front 3 seats, while 2 cultivators sat in the back, facing the other 2 cultivators. Huang Wu and the others were familiar with these 2 cultivators. One of the middle-aged men was the 3rd headmaster of the Huangji clan, Huang Lin. Sitting beside Huang Lin was an old man with white hair and beard. Zhuowen wouldn't be unfamiliar with this old man if he was present. This old man was the palace master of the Impermanence Palace, Fu Qi. Speaking of which, the enmity between Zhuowen and Fu Qi wasn't small. Not only had Zhuowen killed the first heir of the Impermanence Palace, Palace Master Impermanence, but after entering the Xianmi Heavenly Territory, he had also killed the second heir of the Impermanence Palace, Pinghan, and destroyed the primordial spirit that Fu Qi had left in Pinghan. It could be said that Fu Qi hated Zhuowen to the core. If he met Zhuowen, he couldn't wait for Zhuowen to die in front of him immediately. At this moment, Fu Qi seemed extremely restrained in the hall. Other than him, the other 4 people in the hall were the 4 most powerful people in the Huangji clan. They stood at the peak of the Huangji clan's huge strength, especially Huang Wu, who was the first head of the Huangji clan and a terrifying expert who had stepped into the 3rd step of Dao validation. Even in the host region, he could be considered a true expert. Facing such an expert, Fu Qi couldn't help but feel reverence and a strange emotion. 3rd brother, did you collect Master Yuan Hui's aura in the 8 heavenly territories before he died? Huang Wu's eyes were cold as he looked at Huang Lin. He only asked about Master Yuan Hui and didn't even mention 3rd Prince Huang Zhe. Chapter 2763. Trace the true murder. Huang Wu didn't pay much attention to the aura of Huang Zhe that Huang Lin spoke of. Instead, he stared coldly at the jade bottle in his hand and said indifferently, "If I find out who the real culprit is this time, my Huangji family will dig 3 feet into the ground to capture the real culprit and avenge Master Yuan Hui." Huang Lin nodded and hesitated for a moment. He pointed at Fu Qi and said, "Big brother, this is the palace master of Impermanence Palace, Fu Qi. His first successor, young Master Impermanence, was also killed in the 8 heavens. He also wants to use the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror to find the real murderer of young Master Impermanence." Huang Wu put away the jade bottle and looked at Fu Qi. He didn't hide the dissatisfaction in his eyes and said coldly, "3rd brother, you also know that using the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror to trace time and space consumes a lot of my energy. I helped Master Yuan Hui find the real culprit because Master Yuan Hui is our Huangji family's eternal level array Dao master. He is very important to our Huangji family. What does this young Master Wuchang have to do with our Huangji family?" Huang Lin smiled awkwardly and explained, "Brother, it's like this. Palace Master Fu once discovered a special class Heavenly Dao Origin Crystal Mine. In order to thank you for expending your energy for his successor, he plans to use that mine to compensate our Huangji family." Huang Wu, who was originally displeased, was stunned when he heard Huang Lin mention a special grade Heavenly Dao Origin Crystal Mine. However, Huang Wu had been in a high position for a long time after all, so he wouldn't show his emotions on his face. He quickly controlled the shock in his heart and finally looked at Fu Qi. Fu Qi's heart shook when she sensed Huang Wu's gaze, and she hurriedly bent down in a respectful and reverent manner. She didn't dare be disrespectful in the slightest. "Palace Master Fu, did you really discover a special class Heavenly Dao Origin Crystal Vein?" Huang Wu's right hand tapped the red sandalwood armrest as he muttered, Fu Qi hurriedly nodded and said, "First boss, I was lucky and accidentally discovered a unique Heavenly Tao origin crystal mine in a dangerous place. Because I'm not strong enough, I didn't know where to start even though I knew there was a mine. First Master is peerless. Our Impermanence Palace is nothing in front of the Huangji family. It's a waste to leave such a precious mineral vein in my hands. First Master can make the best use of it. I hope First Master can kindly accept it." Huang Wu's eyes narrowed, and a rare smile appeared on the corners of his mouth as he said, "Palace Master Fu, how considerate of you. I will gladly accept the special grade Heavenly Tao Origin Crystal Mine. I will help you settle the matter of the first successor. Also, your Anika Palace will be the #1 subordinate faction of my Huangji clan in the future. If there is an opportunity, my Huangji clan will fully assist your Anika Palace to become a new Tao Palace faction." Fu Qi was overjoyed when he heard this, and he hurriedly bowed. He was also glad that he had made the right choice. This time, he had given away the special grade Heavenly Tao Origin Crystal Mine that he could not excavate, but he had gained the favor of Huang Wu and the others. Moreover, his Anika Palace would definitely receive the full support of the Huangji clan in the future. His Anika Palace's development in the future would be extremely rapid and unparalleled. Huang Wu gestured for Fu Qi to dispense with the formalities and said to Huang Wuqi, "Wuqi, go and prepare some materials for space-time tracing. This matter should not be delayed. I plan to find the real culprit as soon as possible." Huang Wuqi accepted the order and entered the depths of the inner room. While Huang Wu led the others to the plaza, he planned to use the sun-moon demonic mirror and the aura of the deceased when they were alive to reconstruct the true scene of the murder. At this moment, there were already many people gathered in the plaza. Some were sparring with each other, while others were trading items, and so on. When they saw Huang Wu walk out of the palace to the plaza, everyone was surprised. It should be known that Huang Wu was the ruler of the Huangji clan, unless it was a major event, such as the previous High God assembly. He basically did not appear in front of everyone. Now that Huang Wu had appeared in front of everyone out of the ordinary, everyone realized that something big was about to happen. Huang Wuqi quickly walked out with bottles and jars in his hand. There were all kinds of bottles and jars of different colors. "Father, these are the materials you need," Huang Wuqi said respectfully. Huang Wu took the bottles and jars and opened the stoppers one by one. Then, he skillfully mixed them together one by one. Then, his right hand formed a palm and squeezed the mixed liquid in his palm, forming a colorful sphere. At the same time, Huang Wu opened the jade bottles he had obtained from Huang Lin one by one. These were the auras of Master Yuan Hui, Huang Ze, and the others that Huang Lin had collected from the 8 heavens. Of course, it also included the aura of Fu Qi's first successor, young Master Wu Chang. After fusing all the auras into the colorful liquid, Huang Wu's eyes turned solemn as he took out the sun-moon demonic mirror. As soon as the sun-moon demonic mirror appeared, it erupted with an ancient and vicissitude aura. The aura was like a mountain that crushed down, causing the atmosphere in the plaza to become much more solemn. At this moment, the appearance of the sun-moon demonic mirror attracted countless cultivators in the surroundings. Many cultivators gathered at the plaza from other places. Since the High God Assembly, this was the second time the sun-moon demonic mirror appeared in front of everyone. The appearance of the sun-moon demonic mirror naturally indicated that something big was about to happen. I think everyone knows that my third brother has returned to the Huangji clan. I'm sure everyone has some guesses as to why he went to the 8 heavens this time. He went to the 8 heavens to collect the aura of the fallen Master Yuan Hui. Fortunately, he succeeded in his mission. Now, I will use the aura collected by the Sun-Moon demonic mirror to reconstruct the truth of how the real culprit killed Master Yuan Hui and the others. Everyone, open your eyes and take a good look. Remember the real culprit. After that, I will mobilize the entire Huangji clan to arrest the real culprit. When the time comes, I will rely on everyone's strength. Huang Wu's clear voice resounded throughout the plaza, causing a tsunami-like response. The deaths of Grandmaster Yuan Hui and the third prince, Huang Zhe, also made many disciples of the Huangji clan furious. They all wanted to know who was so daring to kill the people of the Huangji clan. Now that Huang Wu was about to reveal the truth in front of everyone, they were naturally more than happy to do so. After Huang Wu finished speaking, he threw the colorful ball toward the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. A ray of light shot out from the Sun-Moon demonic mirror and entered the colorful ball. With a bang, the colorful ball exploded, dispersing a large amount of liquid. The liquid formed a huge screen. In the screen was a pitch-black and cold, starry sky. In the starry sky, everyone saw Huang Zhe and the others confronting a male cultivator. Isn't that Zhuowen, who participated in the High God assembly? They look exactly the same. Don't tell me that Zhuowen is the one who killed the third prince. It can't be, right? This is too much of a coincidence. If this guy is the one who killed the third prince, he's too bold. How dare he come to the Huangji clan to die? When the crowd saw the face of the male cultivator who was confronting Huang Zhe and the others, they were all too familiar with this male cultivator. Chapter 2764. Ho-E Divine Arrow Exposed. It's Zhuowen? Huang Wu squinted his eyes, and a terrifying light burst out from the depths of his eyes. Huang Shan and Huang Wuqi, who were standing beside Huang Wu, had strange looks in their eyes. Zhuowen wasn't a stranger to them. After all, he had been in the limelight during the High God Conference. Zhuowen isn't from the Xianmi heavenly domain, but from the 8 heavenly domains. Huang Wuqi's eyes were cold, and his expression was unfriendly. Big brother, Zhuowen represented the Hall of Punishment in the High God Conference. We have never asked about his background. Now that the Sun-Moon demonic mirror has shown him, shouldn't we ask the enforcement elder? Huang Shan's tone was cold as he said to Huang Wu. Huang Wu was silent for a moment, then said, "Wait, let's continue watching. Zhuowen's strength isn't bad, but he wasn't even a heavenly Dao master at that time. He shouldn't have been able to kill experts like Master Yuan Hui and Zoda. Let's continue watching." Huang Shan nodded his head. Zhuowen's strength was indeed valiant. He still believed that he could kill Huang Zhe, but to say that this child could kill an expert like Grandmaster Yuan Hui, that was really a little far-fetched. They weren't particularly concerned about Huang Zhe's death. Now, they planned to find the real culprit who killed Master Yuan Hui. It wouldn't be too late to find Zhuowen after that. In the image, Huang Zhe gave an order, and the 2 old men beside him attacked Zhuowen. At first, Zhuowen was at a disadvantage under the attacks of the 2 old men. However, all of a sudden, Zhuowen's right hand turned into a blade, and a blade light flashed. Wherever the blade light passed, the 2 old men let out a loud cry as they were cut into 2 halves by the blade light. They couldn't be any more dead than they were. After the 2 old men were killed by Zhuowen, Zhuowen clearly suffered heavy injuries. Huang Zhe wanted to escape, but Zhuowen didn't have the extra strength to chase after him. However, 2 cultivators, 1 male and 1 female, stopped Huang Zhe, captured him, and handed him over to Zhuowen. They are Fire Plume and Steel Plume from the Purple Red House. These 2 have guts to capture someone from our Huangji family. They must be related to Huang Zhe's death. Huang Wuqi coldly snorted, his eyes filled with killing intent. It's actually someone from the Purple Red House. However, the Purple Red House isn't under the jurisdiction of our Huangji family. It's under the jurisdiction of the Lightning God's Garden and isn't under our jurisdiction. Furthermore, our relationship with the Lightning God Garden isn't good. If we go to the Purple Red House, the Lightning God Garden will definitely intervene. Huang Shan said with a frown. Huang Wu was extremely calm and said indifferently, if Master Yuan Hui's death is related to the Purple Red House, then even the Thunder God Garden can't protect the Purple Red House. Huang Shan nodded. Huang Wu was right. In the Xianmi heavenly region, Dao palaces were far superior to Daoist sects. Daoist sects were only vassals to Dao palaces. They weren't worth mentioning. The Huangji family was a Dao palaces. Asking for two people from a small Daoist sect like the Purple Red House was a small matter. The Thunder God Garden wouldn't completely offend the Huangji family. However, the Huangji family would have to pay a hefty price if they wanted to get their people. Let's continue watching. The mastermind behind Huang Zhe's death is Zhuowen. His accomplices are Fire Plume and Steel Plume from the Purple Red House. Huang Wu was very calm. When he saw Huang Zhe being captured alive by Zhuowen, his expression didn't change much. Soon, the scene changed. Huang Zhe's strongest guard, Zoda, the heavens-destined master, had returned. After talking to Zhuowen for a while, he immediately attacked. What shocked everyone was that Zoda killed Huang Zhe as soon as he made his move. Of course, Zoda's attack enveloped both Huang Zhe and Zhuowen. However, Zhuowen wasn't an ordinary person. He was able to escape from Zoda's attack. Zoda has guts. He actually dared to kill his own master. Huang Wu's gaze was cold. Although he didn't care about Huang Zhe, he was still the heir of the Huangji family. Naturally, he was unhappy that Zoda killed Huang Zhe so recklessly. The gap between Zhuowen and Zoda was very big. With his strength, he couldn't have killed Zoda. I just don't know how this guy escaped from Zoda's hands. Who killed Zoda? Huang Shan analyzed. Maybe there's an expert behind Zhuowen, and it was this expert who killed Zoda. This is the most reasonable explanation. Huang Wuqi calmly analyzed. Galaxy of Stars, who was standing at the back, also raised his head and looked at the scene displayed in the sun-moon demonic mirror. He frowned, but his heart was extremely uneasy. In the scene, Zhuowen's cultivation was only at the Heavenly Dao Master. However, this guy easily killed 2 peak elders of the Primordial Origin Master. This made him very uneasy. If it was him, facing 2 peak experts of the Primordial Origin Master when he was the Heavenly Dao Master, although he wouldn't be too embarrassed, he wouldn't be able to kill them as easily as Zhuowen. At the same time, Galaxy of Stars thought of the scene in the Yunshin Convention where he was killed by Zhuowen in one move. He realized that the move Zhuowen used was exactly the same as the move he used to face the 2 peak elders of the Primordial Origin Master. Isn't that the guy's desperate move? He used it back then, so why is he still alive? Galaxy of Stars thought of something and revealed a look of disbelief. He always thought that Zhuowen used a move that cost his life and didn't rely on his own strength to defeat him. Galaxy of Stars had always used this excuse to numb himself, thinking that Zhuowen defeated him by luck. But now, when he realized that the move Zhuowen used to kill him was not a desperate move, he realized that he seemed to have misunderstood. However, Galaxy of Stars didn't want to believe it, or rather, he didn't want to admit that the gap between him and Zhuowen was so terrifying. What is this thing? What a terrifying killing intent. Just when everyone didn't think that Zhuowen was the real culprit, Zhuowen in the scene took out an ordinary-looking horn. The tip of the horn was stained with blood and exuded a strange aura. A shocking killing intent burst out. This killing intent was so terrifying that it actually passed through the scene and affected the minds of everyone outside the scene. Huang Wu, Huang Shan, and Huang Wuji suddenly stood up and looked at the scene in disbelief. Even they felt that this killing intent was difficult to deal with and dignified. This thing is absolutely extraordinary. Huang Wu stared at Hou Yi's godly arrow for a long time before he finally said these words. The moment he said these words, Zhuowen's power accumulation time was over. Hou Yi's godly arrow suddenly shot out, and with a thunderous sound, pierced through the starry sky and shot into Zoda's body. Chapter 2765. Demoted everyone in the square was eerily silent. Galaxy of Stars' eyes were wide open as he stared at Zhuowen in disbelief. He was trembling all over. That arrow was too terrifying. He put himself in Zoda's shoes. He knew that he would not be able to block that arrow, and would end up just like Zoda. This guy didn't use his full strength at all. Galaxy of Stars clenched his fists and gnashed his teeth in anger. He recalled how Zhuowen had killed him in one move during the High God Assembly. Moreover, Zhuowen hadn't even used his final trump card. He knew that Zhuowen hadn't used his full strength when facing him. This was an indescribable humiliation for him. The person he had looked down on and was just a small fry in his eyes had actually killed him without using his full strength. With Galaxy of Stars' pride, how could he endure such humiliation? However, when he recalled the terrifying killing intent of Hou Yi's divine arrow in the sun-moon demonic mirror, his heart trembled. He didn't have the courage to face such a terrifying and peerless monster. Although he was unconvinced, he knew that if he really encountered Zhuowen, he probably wouldn't have the courage to fight him. However, at the same time, he was even more excited. The blood-stained horn that Zhuowen had used was too mysterious and powerful. Zhuowen wasn't particularly strong, but he was able to defeat Zoda, who was a realm higher than him, with that blood-stained horn. It was obvious how amazing that horn was. Of course, it wasn't just Galaxy of Stars. The higher-ups of the Huangji family, including Huang Wu and Huang Shan, as well as the countless cultivators in the square, were all eyeing Zhuowen's blood-stained horn. After all, Huang Wu had been in a high position for a long time. He quickly calmed down and raised his hands in front of him. Everyone immediately quieted down. Continue watching. Huang Wu's words immediately calmed down the boiling square. The scene in the sun-moon demonic mirror began to change. Fu Qi, who was standing not far away, immediately stood up. That was because the scene shown on the screen was the scene of young Master Wu Chang being killed. And the person who killed him was none other than Zhuowen. Zhuowen had killed off young Master Wu Chang, and the others with ease. He did not even need to use the blood-stained horn. Due to that, many of the cultivators in the square, who wanted to see the blood-stained horn again, were disappointed. The scene changed again. This time, Master Yuan Hui appeared. Master Yuan Hui had set up a massive death trap array, trapping Zhuowen and the others within. After that, the Phoenix People's Kong Shi came forward to pin down Master Yuan Hui. Meanwhile, Zhuowen took advantage of the moment when Master Yuan Hui was pinned down and used Hou Yi's divine arrow to kill Master Yuan Hui. When the image froze at the moment when Master Yuan Hui was killed, the entire square fell silent. It was so quiet that it was terrifying. Obviously, no one had expected that Master Yuan Hui would be killed by Zhuowen. At that time, Zhuowen was only the Heavenly Tao Master. Who would have thought that a mere Heavenly Tao Master could kill an Eternal Level Array Master? But now, such an unbelievable scene had truly appeared before their eyes. Big brother, this kid. Huang Shan walked forward and whispered to Huang Wu. He wanted to say something but was stopped by Huang Wu. Second brother, you don't have to say it. I know that the horn on this kid's body might really be that thing. Immediately send someone to the Hall of Penal Law and bring me Zhuowen's body. We must get the treasure on this kid's body. Huang Wu transmitted his voice. Huang Shan nodded and quietly retreated. Huang Wu still had a smile on his face. A vast aura instantly enveloped the entire square. The cultivators who were about to leave the square froze when they sensed Huang Wu's aura. Unnatural expressions appeared on their faces. After seeing that Zhuo Wen had relied on his blood-stained horn to kill Master Yuan Hui, an eternal-level array formation master, everyone in the square turned their attention to Zhuo Wen. Many of them had already planned to leave the square and go to the Hall of Penal Law to take Zhuo Wen back. But now, Huang Wu seemed to have predicted everyone's thoughts. He released his powerful aura in advance and firmly locked onto the square. The people in the square, who were originally scheming in their hearts, were all frightened when they felt this murderous aura. They were originally planning to leave, but their footsteps stiffened on the spot. They could only watch Huang Shan leave the square and go to the Hall of Penal Law. They did not dare to follow him. Everyone, I have something important to tell you. Don't be in a hurry to leave. Listen to me first. Huang Wu smiled faintly. His smile was full of friendliness. After hearing Huang Wu's words, everyone could only continue to stay in the square and listen to Huang Wu's so-called important matters. Even though they knew that Huang Wu was deliberately stalling them, they didn't dare to complain. After all, Huang Wu was the first master of the Huangji clan. He was the true almighty of the Huangji clan, and the only third-step Dao validation almighty in the clan. Since such an existence had spoken, how could they dare to disobey? The enforcement elder happened to be in the square as well. When he saw the sun-moon demon mirror showing Zhuo Wen as the real culprit, he knew things were not going well. He wanted to go back to the Hall of Penal Law to warn Chen Fei, but he was suppressed by Huang Wu's aura and could not move. Many of the surrounding cultivators even looked at him with eyes full of pity and schadenfreude. The area several feet around the law enforcement elder was like a vacuum. The surrounding people all avoided him, as if he was the god of plague. The enforcement elder felt bitter in his heart. He looked up and saw Huang Wu looking at him from the front of the square. Huang Wu's eyes were calm, but there was a trace of killing intent in the depths of his eyes. Thump! The enforcement elder's heart trembled. He immediately knelt down and kowtowed. Enforcement elder, Zhuo Wen is the real culprit, but you invited him to the High God Assembly. I believe you didn't do it on purpose, but a mistake is a mistake. From today onwards, the Hall of Penal Law will be under Zhou Ling's management. You will be in charge of cleaning up Tibet forever, Huang Wu said. The enforcement elder's heart trembled and his body stiffened. He had no choice but to agree. The Tibetan sweeper had the lowest status in the Huangji family. His position was even lower than the ordinary servants. The enforcement elder would be in charge of cleaning up Tibet forever, which meant he would never have the chance to make a comeback. Leave. Huang Wu waved his hand and said indifferently. Chapter 2766. A miserable body not long after the law enforcement elder left, Huang Shan returned with two people. One of them was the half-dead Zhuo Wen, and the other was Chen Fei from the law enforcement hall. At this moment, Chen Fei was being carried by Huang Shan. His face was swollen, and he was barely breathing. Obviously, he had just been taught a lesson. Big brother, this Chen Fei is very protective of Zhuo Wen. I told him that this Zhuo Wen was the one who killed Master Yuan Hui and the others, but this guy didn't believe me and insisted on stopping me from taking Zhuo Wen away. Therefore, I taught him a lesson. Huang Shan saw Huang Wu's frown and explained. Huang Wu nodded, just as he was about to ask if Huang Shan had found the bloody horn on Zhuo Wen. Huang Shan had already sent a message to him. Big brother, I've already searched through this kid's storage ring. There are barely any things in his ring, not to mention that thing. Huang Wu squinted his eyes and asked, That's impossible. That thing must be on this kid. Perhaps you didn't find it. Huang Shan sighed. I've searched many times, but I didn't find anything. Do you think this kid has hidden the treasure? It's possible. Bring this kid back first and save him at all costs. Then, make him hand over the treasure. Huang Wu said indifferently. Huang Shan nodded and casually tossed Chen Fa to the side, then brought Zhuowen into the palace. On the other hand, Huang Wu smiled and said a few polite words to the crowd before dismissing them. He then turned around and led the core members into the palace. Everyone on the plaza was discussing among themselves. They felt that it was a pity, so they all left. Chen Fa was lying on the ground. His consciousness was a bit blurry. He looked at Zhuowen being taken away by Huang Shan and felt bitter. He knew that there was nothing he could do. Men, bring that little bastard Chen Fa back. He must have colluded with that Zhuowen. He must have played a part in murdering the third prince. We can't let him off so easily. Suddenly, an arrogant voice was heard. Chen Fa lifted his eyelids with difficulty and realized that Zhou Ling, who was as fat as a meatball, was already standing in front of him. At that moment, Zhou Ling was in high spirits and gloating as she looked down at Chen Fa as though he was an ant. As soon as Zhou Ling gave the order, several cultivators immediately propped up Chen Fa. When Chen Fa saw that they were disciples of the Hall of Beheadings and Executions, his pupils constricted. What are you doing? The elders haven't spoken yet. What right do you have to touch me? The cultivators looked at him with pity. One of them said, Senior Brother Chen Fa, Hallmaster Zhou is now the Hallmaster of the Hall of Beheadings and Executions. The elder has been demoted by the first master to be a janitor. Chen Fa's face turned pale. He didn't expect the disciplinary elder to be reduced to such a state. This meant that his status had plummeted to the point where he was even worse than a servant. Zhou Ling's expression became even more smug. She was very pleased to see Chen Fa's shocked expression. Take him away. This person is very likely a spy. I want to go back and interrogate him properly. Zhou Ling didn't care about Chen Fa's struggle and ordered a few people to take Chen Fa away. In the pitch-black depths of the Sun Moon Mountain, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze was gloomy. Just now, he sensed that his body seemed to be in great pain. Although his soul was not in his body right now, he had a certain connection with his body. He could feel that his body was enduring an extremely terrifying pain. Who is it? Who dares to attack my body while my soul is in the sun-moon demonic mirror? Zhuowen's gaze was gloomy. At the same time, he rejoiced inwardly. Basically, all of his important things were placed in his macro world. Since the great world was evolved from Devour's inner world, it was much more special than ordinary spaces. Normally, the great world would turn into an undetectable black dot and attach itself to Zhuowen's body. Before participating in the High God Convention, Zhuowen knew that it would be a very dangerous tiger's den. Therefore, he had made thorough preparations. He had turned the great world into a void and attached it to his soul, bringing it into the sun-moon demonic mirror. Zhuowen had only unearthed this kind of illusory ability later. In the future, he planned to attach the great world to his soul. After all, the most important thing for a Tao confirming expert was the soul. As long as a trace of the soul wasn't destroyed, there was a chance for it to be reborn. This was the safest thing for Zhuowen. Maybe Huang Lin has returned. If that's the case, it's really not good. Zhuowen's gaze turned gloomy again. He had stayed in the Sun-Moon Mountain for several years. Huang Lin must have returned. As long as Huang Lin returned and used the Sun-Moon demonic mirror to retrace the scene of the murder, it wouldn't be difficult to find out that the real murderer who killed Huang Zhe and Master Yuan Hui was Zhuowen. Zhuowen was very anxious. This was really a case of his plan not being able to keep up with the changes. He had planned to leave the Huangji clan immediately after obtaining the ancestral sorcerer Gu insect. However, he had not expected that after obtaining the ancestral sorcerer Gu insect, he would be trapped in the sun-moon demonic mirror and spend several years here. Come down first. I have to break all the sealing arrays in this sealed space first. Zhuowen took a deep breath, closed his eyes again, and continued to comprehend the array Tao. He was now only half a step away from becoming a chaotic, primordial array Tao master. As long as he could successfully become a chaotic, primordial array Tao master, he would be able to completely break the sealed space and leave the sun-moon demonic mirror. Time flew by. Another 3 months had passed. Zhuowen finally came out of seclusion again. At this moment, his array Tao level had also improved. He had successfully become a chaotic, primordial array Tao master. Zhuowen stood up and began to use the ultimacy Hongmeng Wuji crazily to break the remaining eternal level sealing arrays in the sealed space. It took Zhuowen half a year to crack all the eternal grade sealing arrays. In the process of deciphering, Zhuowen was also verifying and thinking. His array Tao level had unknowingly increased to the pinnacle of the primordial chaos level. As long as he could have another epiphany opportunity, it wouldn't be a problem for him to become a heaven's mandate array Tao master. Bang! Another gap appeared in the sun-moon mountain. Zhuowen swept out like a puff of smoke, quietly floating to the top. When he finally left the sun-moon demonic mirror, he found that he was in a very solemn sealed space. In this space, there was a burning sandalwood incense, which gave off an antique smell. Zhuowen was now in the form of a spirit. His spirit was protected by the Panga banner. As long as Zhuowen deliberately hid himself with the help of the Panga banner, Huangwu might not be able to find Zhuowen even if he was here. My physical body is there. Zhuowen sensed for a while, then left the space and rushed in a certain direction. This was the interior of a huge palace. Zhuowen knew that this was most likely the magnificent palace in the center of the Huangji clan. Basically, the people living here were the upper echelons and core members of the Huangji clan. Chapter 2767. Awakening. Zhuowen's eyes blazed with fury when he saw that his body had been tortured to such a state. However, Zhuowen did not let his anger get to his head. Instead, he lay low and observed the dark secret chamber in front of him. There were several people in this dark room. From their attire, it could be seen that these people were servants. At the same time, there was an armchair in the center of the secret chamber. The man lying on the armchair was no stranger to Zhuowen. Galaxy of stars? Zhuowen looked at the man, sitting on the wooden armchair, and frowned. He seemed to have noticed the minor details of the matter. Galaxy of Stars was probably still holding a grudge against him for being defeated in the flourishing god assembly. Therefore, he had captured him and tortured him to vent his resentment. However, he was still a member of the Hall of Punishment and Law and the champion of the flourishing god assembly. Although Galaxy of Stars was the #1 genius of the Huangji family, he was still a junior. He should not have such great authority to transfer him here and imprison him in the secret chamber. My lord, this boy is on the verge of death. He doesn't seem to be breathing at all. A servant respectfully came to Galaxy of Stars and reported Zhuowen's situation. Galaxy of Stars said lazily, "This boy has been in this state for the past few months. No matter how you torture him, his consciousness is basically in a blurred state. However, he doesn't die because of this. Continue to torture him. He won't die." The servant hesitated for a moment, then excused himself and went deeper into the secret chamber to take out other torture tools. Fifth brother, I was wondering why I haven't seen Zhuowen in the palace for the past few months. It turns out that he's in your secret chamber." A faint voice came from the door of the secret chamber. A scholarly man slowly walked in with a smile on his face. He looked harmless to humans and animals. This person was no stranger to Zhuowen. He was Huang Ju, the fourth prince of the Huangji family. He was extremely scheming and was a ruthless character who hid a knife behind his smile. Galaxy of Stars glanced at Huang Ju indifferently. He did not care how Huang Ju broke into the secret chamber. Instead, he said indifferently, "Fourth brother, how come I didn't know that you cared so much about this Zhuowen?" Huang Ju said calmly, "During the Flourishing God assembly, I was tricked by this boy who pretended to be a pig to eat the tiger. How can I not care about him?" As he said that, Huang Ju editor, Modlol's 123 Zhuowen, that cross, Huang Ju's Huang, and couldn't help but clicked his tongue. "I really didn't expect this boy's, but he is. But what I'm curious about is this kid's strength is very strong, and his trump cards are even more terrifying. How did he become like this?" Galaxy of Stars coldly snorted and said, "Maybe he was bewitched. The first master spent several years gathering many alchemists and consuming many precious divine medicines just to restore this boy's consciousness. Unfortunately, all of his methods failed. The first master is really good to you. He tried many methods, but failed to awaken this Zhuowen. So, he gave him to you and let you do whatever you want with him. You are not willing to give up the treasure on this boy, right? So, you used such an extreme method?" Huang Ju said, "Fourth brother, don't you want that thing? After all, even Master Yuan Hui died because of that thing. It can be seen that it is very powerful. Anyway, this Zhuowen has no value, and there is nothing valuable in his spiritual ring. I might as well go to the extreme. Maybe this method will work." Galaxy of Stars did not even look at Huang Ju. Instead, his eyes fell on Zhuowen, who was tied to the cross. At this moment, the servant had taken out an even more terrifying torture instrument from the depths of the secret room. Zhuowen's divine soul was hidden in the corner of the secret room. Listening to the conversation between Huang Ju and Galaxy of Stars, he had a rough guess. He knew that the fact that he had killed Master Yuan Hui and others should have been known. At the same time, Huang Wu and others should know about the existence of Ho Yi's divine arrow. Thinking of this, Zhuowen felt a little helpless. Although he had obtained the Go Mang venomous insect, and his Panga's sacred body had transformed into a 4-star realm. However, he was not strong enough to fight against the entire Huangji family. Not to mention the entire Huangji family, the first Master Huang Wu was not someone he could deal with now. After all, he was a mighty figure who had stepped into the third step of Tao validation. Now, Zhuowen needed to think about how to escape from the Huangji family without anyone knowing. The sun-moon demonic mirror was not with Huang Wu. Instead, it was kept in a secret place in the depths of the palace. When Zhuowen's divine soul left the sun-moon demonic mirror, he had silently remembered that place. He was sure that it was Huang Wu's treasury. Because the sun-moon demonic mirror was not with Huang Wu did not notice that Zhuowen had taken the Go Mang venomous insect and left. Of course, part of the reason was that Huang Wu had not completely refined the sun-moon demonic mirror. If Huang Wu had completely refined the sun-moon demonic mirror and could command it like an extension of his arm, even if he did not have the sun-moon demonic mirror with him, Zhuowen would have noticed immediately after leaving the sun-moon demonic mirror. Dig out his heart. I want to see if this guy's heart is still beating. At this moment, Galaxy of Stars' gaze was cold as he casually ordered the servant. The servant naturally did not dare to disobey Galaxy of Stars' order. He responded and placed the torture instrument on Zhuowen's chest. Huangju frowned slightly. He felt that Galaxy of Stars' action was killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. It was not advisable. Fifth brother, this kid still has great value. There is no need to kill him now, right? Huangju spoke. Galaxy of Stars did not pay attention to Huangju. He just looked indifferently at Zhuowen, who was trapped on the cross, and revealed a cruel smile. Zhuowen saw that his body's heart was about to be dug out by the servant. Naturally, he could not wait any longer. His divine soul turned into a stream of light and surged into the head of the body on the cross. After a while, Zhuowen, who was tied to the cross, suddenly opened his eyes. Endless, terrifying aura gushed out from his body, sweeping out like a storm. The servant, who was holding the torture instrument and was about to dig out Zhuowen's heart, could not withstand the terrifying aura. He screamed and was torn to pieces by the terrifying aura. Galaxy of Stars, who was sitting on the armchair, and Huangju, who was standing on the side, changed their expressions greatly. They tried their best to stimulate the energy in their body and revolved it to form a thick shield. They blocked the terrifying attack from all around them. However, the two of them were barely able to resist the attack. While blocking the attack of the aura, they kept retreating. Chapter 2768. Camouflage. When they cast their fearful gazes towards the depths of the secret chamber, they discovered that Zhuowen, who was tied to the cross and had his head drooped, suddenly raised his head. His eyes opened, and an unprecedented light burst forth from them. His limbs, which had been cut off, were rapidly growing back at this moment. Is this guy okay? Galaxy of Stars and Huangju were both stunned and lost their minds for a moment. However, the two of them quickly came back to their senses and quickly retreated, wanting to escape the secret chamber. Zhuowen's strength was too terrifying, and they had already seen it during the High God Convention. Especially the instant Zhuowen woke up, the aura that erupted from him caused them to be unable to raise the slightest intention to resist. They knew that Zhuowen was even more terrifying than during the High God Convention, and they could not be enemies with him. If they were to become enemies with him, they would be courting death. With this thought in mind, the two of them immediately ran away without even fighting. You two don't have to leave today. Stay here. Zhuowen silently looked at Huangju and Galaxy of Stars, who were running away. The aura of the 4-star Pangu's sacred body crushed them without holding back. Galaxy of Stars and Huangju's pupils shrank. They found that they could not move their bodies, and even moving their fingers seemed to be extremely difficult. How is this possible? How can he be so terrifying? Just how powerful is this guy? Galaxy of Stars and Huangju stood still in place, but a sense of despair rose in their hearts. Zhuowen's aura was too terrifying. Even though they were dozens of meters away, this aura could actually affect their movements. It was too inconceivable. Now, the two of them could not even take out the communication jade talisman from their spirit rings to send a message to the experts in the Huangji family. Zhuowen stretched his body and slowly walked towards Galaxy of Stars, and Huangju, marveling at the magic of the Go-Mang-Gu insect. The recovery ability of the Go-Mang-Gu insect really surprised him. His limbs were cut off, and there were at least thousands of wounds on his body. However, with the help of the Go-Mang-Gu insect, he was able to recover in an instant, and he was intact. If it was just the body of an ordinary cultivator, Zhuowen would not be too concerned. However, this was the Pangu's sacred body, and it was a 4-star Pangu's sacred body. The Pangu's sacred body was not an ordinary body. It was extremely strong, but it was also very difficult to recover once it was Galaxy of a translation. According to Zhuowen's Panga-Mang-Gu, it was with the recovery ability of the Panga-Mang-Gu to recover the limbs, it would take at least 10 days to half months. Bang! Bang, bang, bang! Zhuo and Huang Ju, Huang Ju and Huang Ju, and Huang, Huang Ju and Yui, and Huang. Soon after, the two men's limbs exploded into a bloody mist. Zhuo had crippled the two men's limbs in one move. Zhuo, what are you doing? Do you want to be enemies with the Huang Ji family? We are the sons of the Huang Ji family, and this is the core palace of the Huang Ji family. If you dare to kill us here, then you are really dead. If you let us live, you will also have a way to live. Huang Ju was more scheming. He knew that at this time, he had to be calm. He looked at Zhuo and carefully analyzed the pros and cons for Zhuo. I killed your third brother, Huang Zhe, Zoda, and Master Yuan Hui. Do you think I dare not kill you? Zhuo said indifferently. After that, Zhuo's palm landed on Huang Ju's head and immediately used the soul-searching technique. Zhuo's divine soul was much stronger than Huang Ju's. Although Huang Ju tried his best to resist, Zhuo still found a gap and invaded his divine soul to look through his memories. He had stayed in the sun-moon demon mirror for too long. Now that he came out, he had to know the specific situation of the Huang Ji family. Otherwise, blindly acting would only make him very passive. After looking through Huang Ju's divine soul memories, Zhuo completely erased Huang Ju's divine soul. He revealed a trace of joy. Because he found out from Huang Ju's memories that the Huang Ji family's first master, Huang Wu, and second master, Huang Shan, had left the Huang Ji family. It was said that they went to the Thunder God's garden. As for what happened, Huang Ju didn't know. The person Zhuo feared the most now was Huang Wu, and Huang Shan wasn't a good person either. The fact that the two of them weren't in the Huang Ji family was definitely good news for Zhuo. Currently, the only person that Zhuo was afraid of in the Huang Ji clan was the third headmaster, Huang Lin. Among the three masters, Huang Lin was the most inexperienced and the weakest. Although Huang Lin and Huang Shan were both half-step creators, Huang Lin's strength was still much weaker than Huang Shan's. Comparatively speaking, Huang Shan was closer to the creator realm than Huang Lin. With Zhuo's 4-star Pangu's sacred body, although he might not be a match for Huang Lin, it wouldn't be easy for Huang Lin to kill him. Moreover, Zhuo still had the Hou Yi's godly arrow in his hands. The Hou Yi's godly arrow's potential hadn't been fully unleashed in Zhuo's hands. Back then, Zhuo was too weak and could only unleash a portion of the Hou Yi's godly arrow's potential. Now that Zhuo had advanced to the 4-star Panga's sacred body, he could unleash more of the Hou Yi's godly arrow's potential. With such a trump card, Zhuo really wasn't afraid of Huang Lin. Thinking of this, Zhuo heaved a sigh of relief. At least now, he had a certain level of ability to protect himself in the Huang Ji family. After feeling relieved, Zhuo's gaze fell on the galaxy of stars, who wasn't far away. The latter seemed to have sensed the killing intent in Zhuo's eyes and felt a chill in his heart. However, he looked straight at Zhuo and didn't beg for mercy. Zhuo was surprised by the galaxy of stars' stubbornness. He casually grabbed him and checked with his divine consciousness. He said indifferently, Huang Wu really valued you. He actually left a trace of his primordial spirit in your body. As long as I kill you, I'm afraid that this trace of his primordial spirit will automatically be triggered. At that time, Huang Wu will know that you are dead. The galaxy of stars' expression changed slightly. He didn't expect Zhuo to see that there was a trace of Huang Wu's primordial spirit in his body. What are you trying to do? You killed many people from the Huang Ji family. All of this torture is what you deserve, the galaxy of stars said coldly. Zhuo's right hand formed a claw and pointed out. Terrifying energy condensed into endless stars and drilled into the major acupoints all over the galaxy of stars' body. In just an instant, all of the meridians in the galaxy of stars' body were destroyed. The galaxy of stars' expression changed drastically. He couldn't help but curse, "You destroyed my meridians and destroyed my Taoist root. Zhuowen, you are too cruel." Zhuowen didn't bother to pay attention to the cursing galaxy of stars. After imprisoning him, he casually stuffed him into the great world. After doing this, Zhuowen changed his appearance and disguised himself as the galaxy of stars. Zhuowen's divine soul had the Panga banner. This banner could record the aura of the galaxy of stars and then simulate an almost identical one. Chapter 2769. Killing Zhou Ling. After doing all this, Zhuowen left the secret chamber and the core palace, heading for the Hall of Penal Laws. In Huangju's memories, he discovered that the disciplinary elder of the Hall of Penal Law had been demoted by Huang Wu to a cleaner in Tibet. His status was so low that he was no better than a servant. Zhou Ling, on the other hand, had been gloriously promoted to the new head of the Hall of Penal Law. Given Zhou Ling's vengeful personality, he probably wouldn't let Chen Fa off. This time, Zhuowen was heading to the Hall of Penal Law to see how Chen Fa was doing. Then, he would go to Tibet to see the disciplinary elder. After all, the two of them had met with such a disaster, and it was inseparable from him. When Zhuowen arrived at the Hall of Penal Law, his divine sense had already swept through the entire Hall of Penal Law. However, he didn't find Chen Fa's aura at all. Instead, he saw Zhou Ling, who was enjoying life in the Hall of Penal Law. He didn't pay any attention to Zhou Ling. Instead, he left the Hall of Penal Law and headed straight for Tibet. Since he didn't find Chen Fa, he would go and see the disciplinary elder's situation first. It had to be said that his identity as a member of the galaxy of stars was very useful. He didn't need any proof. The guards at Tibet warmly let him in. Tibet was located in an incomparably huge courtyard. This courtyard was like a small forest. There were flowers, birds, trees, pavilions, and fake mountains. Tibet was very lively. Many disciples of the Huangji family would come to Tibet to borrow the cultivation technique manuals or books on alchemy and formations. However, there was a clear contrast to the lively atmosphere. There was a withered figure standing in the corner of Tibet's courtyard. This was an old man. His back was hunched, and he carried a broom as he silently swept the fallen leaves and dirt in the courtyard. There were even some disciples who felt that the old man was not cleaning well enough and would kick him hard, causing him to be thrown off his feet. However, the old man didn't dare to resist. He was submissive, like a dog servant. Zhuowen looked at the haggard old man and sighed in his heart. He almost couldn't recognize this old man, and this old man was the law enforcement elder he was looking for. However, the change in Patriarch of Law Enforcement and Zhuowen was too great. He seemed to have aged more than 10 years like a poor old man. He no longer had the confidence and majesty that he had when he was in charge of the Hall of Penal Law. Zhuowen stepped forward to stop the disciple who was about to act violently again. When the disciple saw that it was actually the galaxy of stars, he was so scared that he immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed repeatedly. After Zhuowen impatiently sent the disciple away, he looked at the law enforcement elder and sighed. "Law enforcement elder, do you still remember me?" Patriarch of Law Enforcement raised his eyelids and looked at Zhuowen. He quickly bowed and said, "Your servant greets Your Highness the Fifth Prince." "Your Highness, I'm just a dog. I've done my best to clean this courtyard. I've done my best and never neglected my duties." Looking at the trembling old man in front of him, Zhuowen sighed in his heart and felt a trace of guilt. He knew that the law enforcement elder had fallen to this state because of him. "Law enforcement elder, I'd like to ask where that Chen Fa is." Zhuowen asked. The law enforcement elder looked at Zhuowen in surprise. In his eyes, the current Zhuowen in front of him was the galaxy of stars. He couldn't imagine that the galaxy of stars would be related to a small character like Chen Fa. Thinking of Chen Fa, the law enforcement elder said regretfully, "Fifth Prince, don't you know? Chen Fa has already fallen." "What? How did he die?" Zhuowen narrowed his eyes, a trace of killing intent filling the air. The law enforcement elder was surprised by Zhuowen's reaction. He could only respectfully say, "It was Zhou Ling who killed him. That Zhou Ling is a vengeful person. Chen Fa already had quite a bit of conflict with him. After I stepped down, Zhou Ling became the new head of the Hall of Penal Law. So Zhuowen took a deep breath, not bothering to hide the killing intent in his eyes. This made the law enforcement elder feel even more strange. In his impression, the galaxy of stars wouldn't reveal such a strange state for Chen Fa. This wasn't like the galaxy of stars. "Law enforcement elder, where's Brother Chen's body?" Zhuowen asked. The law enforcement elder shook his head. "Chen Fa's body and soul have been destroyed. As for his body, I can't find it. I think Zhou Ling has already disposed of it. Law enforcement elder, come with me to the Hall of Penal Law." Zhuowen waved his sleeve and led the law enforcement elder to the Hall of Penal Law. The law enforcement elder was astonished. He hurriedly said, "Fifth Prince, what are you doing?" "I can't leave my post now. Otherwise, the consequences will be severe." "Law enforcement elder, I'm not the galaxy of stars. I'm Zhuowen. Today, I'll take you away from the Huangji family and return you true freedom." Zhuowen secretly transmitted his voice. The law enforcement elder was stunned. He looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. However, when he thought of the galaxy of stars' strange behavior today, the law enforcement elder somewhat believed that this person could be Zhuowen. "You're really Zhuowen? You're not lying to me?" the law enforcement elder asked again. "Yes, I have no reason to lie to you about this," Zhuowen said. "What about the Fifth Prince?" the law enforcement elder asked. "That guy is no different from dead," Zhuowen answered without turning his head. The law enforcement elder's eyes flashed. He suddenly stopped and said, "Zhuowen, go to the Hall of Penal Law first. I remember that Chen Fa left a relic in my residence. I'll go get it now. After all, he died for you. I'll give it to you." With that, the law enforcement elder hurriedly left. Zhuowen looked at the law enforcement elder's departing figure with a self-deprecating smile. He was not a fool. He could tell that the law enforcement elder was lying. If Chen Fa had really left a relic behind, the law enforcement elder would have mentioned it when he announced his identity. He would not have mentioned it only after they were halfway there. However, Zhuowen did not expose or stop him. Instead, he muttered to himself, "Law enforcement elder, this is my compensation to you. I'll let you atone for your crimes by meritorious service. However, after this, the grudge between you and me will be written off." With that, Zhuowen rushed toward the Hall of Penal Law without looking back. The Hall of Penal Law was as quiet as ever. Apart from the disciples entering and exiting, there was not much difference from normal. However, the disciples of the Hall of Penal Law were all frowning. Ever since Zhou Ling became the Hall Master, he had bullied the weak and tyrannized the Hall of Penal Law. There was nothing he could do. Many disciples of the Hall of Penal Law could not take it anymore and left. This caused the number of disciples in the Hall of Penal Law to drop sharply. The Hall of Penal Law, which had been developing well, had completely declined. It was overtaken by other halls that were inferior to the Hall of Penal Law. When Zhuowen arrived at the Hall of Penal Law, Zhou Ling was notified and hurriedly came out. He walked up to Zhuowen and said with a flattering smile, "I'm honored by your presence, Fifth Prince. Forgive me for not going out to meet you." So You do know that you didn't go out to meet me. How are you going to apologize? Zhuowen said coldly. Zhou Ling was taken aback. He was just being polite, but the fifth prince actually took it seriously. Zhou Ling immediately felt embarrassed. Since you can't think of anything, I'll think of something for you. Your life will be the price. Chapter 2770. Instant killing of Shan Tianlong Plop. Zhou Ling's body fell to the ground, and the entire hall of penal law fell into a strange silence. Zhou Ling had walked out of the hall of penal law with more than a dozen lackeys behind him. He was in high spirits to welcome the fifth prince, Galaxy of Stars, who was played by Zhuowen. However, no one had expected that Zhou Ling would walk into a death trap the moment he came out. Those lackeys were very quiet and did not say a word. They just stared blankly at Zhuowen. Galaxy of Stars' identity was too extraordinary. His status was much higher than Zhou Ling's. Although the Galaxy of Stars in front of them had killed their hall master in front of them, they did not dare to say anything. However, they did not dare to utter a single word of complaint. Much less avenge, Zhou Ling Zhuowen's cold gaze fell on those lackeys as he asked coldly. Zhou Ling disregarded the law and killed Chen Fa, a disciple of the same sect. He deserved it. I'll execute him. You have any objections? Those lackeys quickly knelt on the ground and kowtowed repeatedly, claiming that they had no objections. Scram! Zhuowen said rudely. After these people left, Zhuowen turned into a puff of green smoke and disappeared on the spot, rushing out of the Huangji clan. He had already dealt with Chen Fa's matter, and he had obtained the Go Mang parasite to advance to the 4-star Pangu sacred body. There was no need for him to stay in the Huangji clan any longer. Moreover, he knew that the longer he stayed in the Huangji clan, the higher the chances of him being discovered. There were still 2 guards standing guard at the inner city gate of the Huangji clan. Zhuowen looked at the 2 guards and breathed a sigh of relief. Previously, when the law enforcement elder said that he wanted to go back to take Chen Fa's belongings, he had suspected that the law enforcement elder wanted to report him to make amends. Now, it seemed that he was overthinking. Fifth Prince. When the 2 guards saw Zhuowen's identity, their eyes showed respect, and they knelt on one knee on the ground. However, Zhuowen's expression changed, because the moment the 2 guards knelt on the ground, the 2 guards instantly burst out with a powerful attack. The target just happened to be Zhuowen's heart. Bang, bang! Zhuowen's reaction wasn't slow, and he suddenly blasted out 2 punches to instantly shatter the attacks of the 2 guards. Moreover, he took the opportunity to smash them between the brows, causing them to be blasted into a bloody mist. Their souls were obliterated, and they'd completely perished. After killing the 2 guards in an instant, Zhuowen took a step forward, intending to completely leave the city through the entrance. However, he soon discovered that a powerful restriction barrier had appeared at the entrance, blocking him inside. With Zhuowen's insight, he found that this barrier was an extremely powerful defensive barrier formed by more than a dozen eternal grade trap and kill arrays. If it was in the past, Zhuowen would not be able to crack it at all. However, for the current Zhuowen, this defensive barrier wasn't that difficult. After all, he had cracked many eternal grade seal and kill arrays in the sealed space. This defensive barrier formed by more than a dozen trap and kill arrays wasn't a big problem for him. However, he needed to rely on Hongmeng Wuji, and it would take a lot of time to do so. Obviously, he didn't have the time to undo this defensive barrier, because the moment he killed the 2 guards, he was locked on by an extremely terrifying murderous intent. Zhuowen was no stranger to this murderous aura. It belonged to Huang Wuji, who had appeared at the High God Convention. Huang Wuji's strength was unfathomable. His cultivation had reached the peak of the Eternal Overlord realm, and he was much stronger than Kong Shi. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. swoosh, 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 swoosh out from the depths of the Huangji clan. Soon, dozens of figures appeared at the entrance and surrounded Zhuowen. At the same time, many disciples of the Huangji clan were also alarmed. They all came over and looked over, wanting to see what was going on. However, when they saw that the galaxy of stars was surrounded by dozens of elders of the Huangji clan, they didn't know what was going on and started discussing spiritedly. Fifth Prince, what are you trying to do? Why did you kill the gatekeepers for no reason? A middle-aged man with a full beard stood up in front of the dozens of cultivators and asked coldly as he looked at Zhuowen. Zhuowen was no stranger to this bearded middle-aged man. He turned out to be the hall master of the Hall of Rules, Shan Tianlong, who had made things difficult for him, and the enforcement elder during the High God Convention. When Zhuowen saw this scene, he knew that his identity had been exposed, but these people still couldn't confirm it. Thinking of this, Zhuowen smiled self-deprecatingly. He knew that the enforcement elder had to be the informant. However, he didn't care. When the enforcement elder had left midway, he had already guessed it. After this incident, in his opinion, he didn't owe the enforcement elder anything. These two guards overestimated themselves and tried to kill me first. I killed them because they deserved it. As for you, who do you think you are? What right do you have to question me? Zhuowen was calm and composed as he bluntly showered Dan Tianlong with a torrent of abuse. Shan Tianlong already knew that the galaxy of stars in front of him was a fake. His words just now were just a joke. Shan Tianlong didn't expect to be scolded by the impostor in front of him for no reason. One could imagine how depressed he was. How dare you? You're just a fake. Where did you take the fifth prince? Hurry up and hand him over. Otherwise, I'll kill you immediately. Shan Tianlong said coldly. Zhuowen didn't waste his breath. He took a step forward and clenched the fingers of his right hand into a fist. He suddenly punched out, and an ear-piercing sound of air exploding appeared in the air. After that, Zhuowen's right fist shot out like a furious dragon. Rumble! The momentum of this punch was too great. The moment he punched out, Shan Tianlong's expression changed. He felt incredulous. The Zhuowen in front of him didn't have a strong aura. He was just a Dao Yuan master. Although Zhuowen's disguise as the galaxy of stars seemed flawless the moment he attacked, he was exposed. Shan Tianlong recognized Zhuowen. However, Shan Tianlong found it hard to imagine how a guy who was just a Dao Yuan master could be so powerful. Even he smelled the scent of death from this punch. Shan Tianlong roared and gathered all the strength in his body. He unleashed all the strength of the Dao Yuan master and punched out as well. He wanted to use this to stop Zhuowen's terrifying punch. Uffed. Unfortunately, when Shan Tianlong's fist collided with Zhuowen's fist, a bloody mist exploded. Shan Tianlong screamed in pain. On the other hand, Zhuowen's fist was unimpeded as it directly shattered Dan Tianlong's right fist. His fist connected and landed on Dan Tianlong's shoulder, then his head. On the other hand, Dan Tianlong only let out a muffled groan as his head exploded. His divine soul was unable to withstand such a terrifying power and turned into ashes. Zhuowen only used one move to kill Shan Tianlong, and this move that killed Shan Tianlong in an instant shocked everyone. Everyone's jaws almost fell to the ground when they saw this scene. Chapter 2771. 1 against 5-inch you're courting death. The dozens of people surrounding Zhuowen were all hall masters of the Huangji family branch. Their strength was impressive, with the weakest being Heaven's Mandate Master and the strongest being an early-stage Eternal Overlord. There were a total of 5 early-stage Eternal Overlord Hall Masters. As these 5 stood to one side, the rest were respectful and reverent. Obviously, these 5 early-stage Eternal Overlord Hall Masters were the leaders of this group. Let's attack together and kill this kid. Everyone, this kid isn't the real crown prince of the galaxy of stars, but Zhuowen in disguise. We don't know if the fifth prince is alive or dead, but it's inextricably linked to him. An early-stage Eternal Overlord Hall Master with white hair and beard snorted coldly. He led the dozens of Hall Masters to attack Zhuowen at the same time. Colorful attacks exploded in the air like a dazzling rainbow. It was extremely dazzling and terrifying. Zhuowen didn't dodge at all. Ever since his Pango's sacred body had advanced to the 4-star level, its strength had undergone a huge transformation. With his current Pango's sacred body, the attacks of Heaven's Mandate Master and Profound Theory Master could only cause minor injuries to him. Coupled with the terrifying recovery power of the Gomong Parasite, the attacks of Heaven's Mandate Master and Profound Theory Master were not worth mentioning. The only thing he was afraid of was the attack of an Eternal Overlord. If such an attack landed on his body, Zhuowen would suffer serious injuries. Now, Zhuowen basically didn't dodge the attacks of the cultivators below the Eternal Overlord level. However, he would slightly dodge the attacks of the 5 early-stage Eternal Overlord Hall Masters. Facing the numerous attacks, Zhuowen was like a god or a demon. In an instant, he swept in front of one of the Hall Masters. His claws shot out like lightning, clasping the man's neck and twisting violently, killing him completely. After killing one Hall Master, Zhuowen swept toward the next Hall Master like a puff of green smoke. At this moment, Zhuowen was like a demon god. Wherever he went, a corpse would appear. No one could withstand a single strike from him. After all, his 4-star Pango sacred body was too powerful and terrifying. As for Zhuowen's style of fighting, he did not care about defense and only focused on attacking. Moreover, he killed one person with one move. Everyone who saw this felt a chill in their hearts. At the moment, Zhuowen was like a tank that didn't care about his own life. Everywhere he went, there would be a rain of blood. In just a quarter of an hour, 2/3 of the Hall Masters had died in his hands. The 5 early-stage Eternal Lord Hall Masters joined forces to attack Zhuowen several times, but Zhuowen dodged them all. After dodging, Zhuowen continued his massacre without any scruples. Before long, apart from the 5 early-stage Eternal Overlords, the remaining 1/3 of the Hall Masters had all died at Zhuowen's hands. This result caused a huge uproar. The disciples who were watching from afar couldn't believe what they were seeing. At the same time, they retreated further away from the battlefield. Zhuowen's bloody massacre had frightened them. Even though they were used to seeing life and death, an inexplicable sense of fear still rose in their hearts. How can you be so strong? The 5 early-stage Eternal Lord Hall Masters were also stunned. Zhuowen's combat strength was too terrifying. They had not expected that the joint attack of dozens of Hall Masters would end up like this. Zhuowen's body was dripping with blood, and his clothes were torn, revealing many hideous and terrifying wounds. However, the 5 early-stage Eternal Lord Hall Masters were not blind. Although Zhuowen's wounds were terrifying on the surface, they were only flesh wounds. His insides were not damaged at all. Of course, what was even more incredible was that Zhuowen's physical body was so strong that it was like an unkillable cockroach. Zhuowen ignored the shock of the 5 Hall Masters. He stomped his right foot on the ground, and a terrifying power turned into invisible ripples that spread out in all directions like a ring. Rumble! Countless cracks appeared on the surrounding ground. Then, these cracks became even more obvious. The bricks on the ground defied the laws of gravity and floated up. Zhuowen, on the other hand, shot out like an arrow from a bow. His speed was so fast that everyone could only see Zhuowen's afterimage. Moreover, due to the fact that Zhuowen's speed was too fast, The shadows were left behind wherever he went. It was as if many shadows of Zhuo Wen had appeared. Bang! Zhuo Wen's fist had already arrived in front of the white-haired old man. When it was only a few feet away from the old man reacted quickly and immediately took out a white bone shield. Bang! The bone shield was very hard. When Zhuo Wen's fist struck the bone shield, it actually produced a metallic sound. The echoes kept echoing in the empty valley, and because of the huge force, the old man grunted and was quickly sent flying. A mouthful of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. It was a shocking sight. After the old man was sent flying with a punch, the other 4 hall masters reacted. They all took out their respective trump cards and greeted Zhuo Wen. The 4 hall masters were 2 men and 2 women. 2 of the men were relatively young. One of the men in blue took out a gear-like weapon. This weapon was as big as 3 or 4 people's heads. The edges were serrated and had 2 layers. Once it was turned, these serrated teeth would be like scissors that could cut a human body into pieces. The other white-robed man took out an ancient divine sword. The 2 women were also extraordinary. One was a charming young married woman, and the other looked like a very pure young girl. The 2 women also took out their own life divine weapons and greeted Zhuo Wen. Zhuo Wen did not refuse. He also punched out and met the 4 people's divine weapons head-on. To the 4 people's disbelief, Zhuo Wen's fist was like an iron fist. When it hit their divine weapons, all of them were sent flying. They could not help but retreat again and again. A mouthful of blood spurted from the corner of their mouths, and their auras withered. Zhuo Wen took advantage of the victory and continued to attack. He punched 5 times in a row, beating the 5 people back again and again. The injuries on their bodies were getting more and more serious. As for the surrounding disciples, they were all dumbfounded. This Zhuo Wen was fighting against 5 early-stage eternal rank experts by himself, yet he managed to suppress all 5 of them. What kind of strength did this require? Even a late-stage eternal rank expert may not necessarily be a match for these 5 hall masters when they join forces. However, this person is actually fighting 1 against 5 and even suppressing them. It looks like the 5 hall masters are in a precarious situation. Chapter 2772. Huang Wuqi makes a move. How dare you kill the Huangji clan's hall masters? Today, I want you to die here. Just as Zhuo Wen completely suppressed the 5 hall masters, a loud voice came from the depths of the Huangji clan. It was so loud that even the deaf could hear it. Then, a terrifying energy palm swept out from the depths. Like a 5-fingered mountain, it appeared above Zhuo Wen's head and slammed down. Zhuo Wen coldly snorted and also threw a punch, smashing it against the energy palm. However, what surprised him was that the energy palm was so powerful that his 4-star Panga's sacred body could not shatter it immediately. Instead, it was in a stalemate for a while. When the 5 hall masters, who were originally being suppressed by Zhuo Wen, saw that Zhuo Wen was actually using all his strength to deal with the energy palm, their eyes revealed surprise and joy. After exchanging glances, they shot out with great tacit understanding and attacked Zhuo Wen. This was a rare opportunity. With Huang Wuqi's help, they naturally would not waste such a good opportunity to kill Zhuo Wen. However, when the 5 of them approached the energy palm, they felt a terrifying sense of crisis. Immediately, the energy palm was torn apart in front of their eyes. A terrifying saber light swept out, crossing the sky and arriving in front of their eyes. They only had time to put up a shield in front of them before the saber light appeared in front of them. However, they were shocked to find that the shield in front of them was like paper under the attack of the saber light. It was easily torn apart by the saber light. Then, The saber light passed through their bodies with irresistible force. They only felt a sharp pain in their heads, and then their consciousness gradually dissipated. After the 5 hall masters were completely killed by the sky-splitting blade, the surroundings were silent. It was so silent that it was terrifying. No one expected that the 5 Eternal Level Hall Masters would be so easily killed when they joined forces. This person is still hiding his strength. If he had displayed such a shocking saber light just now, the 5 Hall Masters would have died long ago. The energy palm just now should have been unleashed by the eldest crown prince, Huang Wuqi. I didn't expect it to still be unable to block the saber light. What kind of move is that? Everyone was discussing and retreating, not daring to get close to Zhuowen. Zhuowen ignored these people. Instead, he separated his main body and let it land at the entrance. He tried to analyze the defensive barrier at the entrance. With his current array, Dao level, and Hongmeng Wuji, he only needed half an incense stick's worth of time to break through this defensive barrier. Boom! At the same time, a terrifying killing intent flashed out from the depths. Then, a stalwart figure suddenly flashed out and landed in front of Zhuowen, who was not far from the entrance. This was a very ordinary-looking man. Zhuowen quickly recognized that this person was the eldest prince, Huang Wuqi. At this moment, Huang Wuji's eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at Zhuowen. He was holding an old man in his hand. Huang Wuqi casually threw the old man on the ground, and the old man crawled up while trembling. He humbly stood behind Huang Wuqi with his head lowered and his back hunched. Zhuowen took a deep look at the old man behind Huang Wuqi. How could he not recognize this old man? It was the law-enforcing patriarch who had left halfway. Perhaps the law-enforcing patriarch felt Zhuowen's gaze. He lowered his head even more and did not look at Zhuowen. I underestimated you. Huang Wuqi looked at Zhuowen and spoke indifferently. His voice was as loud as a bell. The law-enforcing patriarch had informed him immediately. He did not personally take action, but let dozens of powerful hall masters of the Huangji clan join forces to capture this child. Moreover, he also thought that it was a bit excessive for so many hall masters to join forces. Although Zhuowen was not weak, it was not to the point where he had to take action personally. Huang Wuqi also knew that Zhuowen had the terrifying blood-stained horn, but Huang Wu and the other core figures had studied it for a long time and did not find any clues on Zhuowen. They guessed that the blood-stained horn on Zhuowen's body was placed in a secret place. Therefore, although he knew that the blood-stained horn was terrifying, he did not care much about it since it was not on Zhuowen's body. If Zhuowen had the blood-stained horn on him, he might be a little afraid. However, it was clear that Zhuowen didn't have it, so he didn't really care about Zhuowen. However, he did not expect Zhuowen's strength to be so terrifying. Dozens of hall masters had joined forces, but they were still defeated by Zhuowen. This was truly beyond his expectations. The crown prince is going to take action. It seems that the 5th crown prince is really a fake, but who is this person? How can his strength be so terrifying? I don't know either. I really can't think of anyone else who can have such powerful strength. When Huang Wuqi appeared, everyone was in an uproar and discussed spiritedly. They were all guessing the true identity of this fake galaxy of stars. Zhuowen, I know it's you. My 4th brother has been killed by you, but my 5th brother's life has not been extinguished yet. Where did you hide him? Huang Wuqi said in a domineering tone. Zhuowen stood quietly in place and asked, if I hand over the galaxy of stars, does it mean that you will let me leave the Huangji clan? Huang Wuqi looked as if he had heard the biggest joke. He looked coldly at Zhuowen and laughed. What do you think? If you hand over my 5th brother now, I can still leave you with an intact corpse and give you a quick death. But if you don't hand him over, I will make you regret being born in this world. I will make you taste all kinds of pain in the world and make you wish you were dead." Zhuowen's eyelids drooped, and with a flick of his finger, a figure was pulled out from the outside world. This figure was a very handsome young man. At this moment, the young man's neck was being held by Zhuowen's right hand, like a chick being pinched in someone's hand. No matter how hard he struggled, it was useless. The moment Huang Wuqi saw the young man, his eyes immediately lit up with joy and said, "Good. Zhuowen, you're very good. Hand over the galaxy of stars to me, and I'll give you a chance to kill yourself. But before you kill yourself, you need to tell me the clues about the bloodstained horn, and then you can die." Huang Wuqi was in high spirits. When he said this, his tone was natural, as if he was giving face to Zhuowen by letting Zhuowen kill himself. Galaxy of Stars also heard Huang Wuqi's words, and his struggle became much weaker. He glanced sideways at Zhuowen with a trace of contempt. In his opinion, if Huang Wuqi made a move, Zhuowen would have to submit even if he didn't want to. After all, his big brother was a truly terrifying existence. In the entire Huangji clan, he was second only to the three masters. He didn't believe that Zhuowen would dare to kill him in front of his big brother. Otherwise, he would be courting death. Galaxy of Stars. Your big brother said that even if I don't kill you, I'll still die. If I kill you, I'll also die. Since I'm going to die anyway, why don't I drag you down with me? Zhuowen opened his mouth, his voice full of mockery. As soon as he said that, Huang Wuqi realized that something was wrong. Huang Xinghe, on the other hand, revealed a look of panic. This was because he felt a terrifying power spreading from Zhuowen's palm into his neck. Puqi, Chapter 2773. Eternal Fist Scripture Plop. The headless body of Galaxy of Stars was casually thrown to the ground by Zhuowen, making a dull sound. The sound was very soft, but it was like the ripples caused by a stone falling into water, causing everyone present to feel uneasy. Huang Wuqi was stunned. He stared blankly at the body that Zhuowen had thrown to the ground. After confirming that Galaxy of Stars was indeed dead, his gaze fell on Zhuowen again. A shocking killing intent emanated from Huang Wuqi's eyes, accompanied by a terrifying storm-like aura that spread throughout the surroundings. When everyone felt this terrifying aura and killing intent, their bodies trembled, and their hearts felt as cold as the winter of the 12th lunar month. They all knew that Huang Wuqi was really angry. They all kept surprisingly quiet, and no one dared to talk at this time. Who knew if their discussion would arouse Huang Wuqi's attention and cause a disaster to befall them? However, their gazes towards Zhuowen were filled with pity. They knew very well that the young man in white would directly face Huang Wuqi's anger. They had already expected the young man's fate. It would be extremely miserable. Huang Wuqi had been cultivating for thousands of years and had always been the most powerful genius of the Huangji family. He had advanced by leaps and bounds, surpassing all his peers and elders in the family. Huang Wuqi was now the strongest expert of the Huangji family, second only to the three leaders. His cultivation was also at the peak of the eternal overlord realm. Huang Wuqi was the second genius in the Huangji family, who had the potential to step into the third step of the Tao-proving realm besides Huang Wu. He was more promising than the second leader, Huang Shan, and the third leader, Huang Lin. You're courting death. How dare you kill my fifth brother in front of me? I'll make sure you die a horrible death today. Huang Wuqi roared angrily. His terrifying aura was like a raging dragon roaring past and crushing Zhuowen. Zhuowen stood silently in place. The storm-like aura fell on him. Although it put some pressure on him, he activated the power of the Pangu sacred body slightly. The aura did not have much of a suppressive effect on him. Boom! Huang Wuqi took a step forward and clenched his right hand into a fist, which shot out like a bolt of lightning towards Zhuo Wen's vital points. This punch shocked the heavens and earth and made ghosts and gods weep. It was as if a huge mountain had fallen from the sky. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock as they retreated. There were even people who directly vomited a mouthful of blood and were seriously injured. Everyone was secretly shocked by Huang Wuji's strength and terror. This punch was merely the aftermath of the shockwave. Furthermore, it was still very far away. Yet, many people were still struck by the shockwave and were seriously injured. The Crown Prince is too terrifying. His strength is far beyond peak eternal overlords. Could it be that the first heir has already broken through to the half-step creator stage? No, the Crown Prince should still be a peak eternal lord. However, the eternal fist scripture he's cultivated has probably been cultivated to the point of perfection. Once he fully comprehended the eternal fist scripture, the Crown Prince will advance to the half-step creator realm. Everyone retreated far away and looked in front of Huang Wuqi and Zhuo Wen. They discussed spiritedly and felt their hearts tremble, especially when they mentioned the eternal fist scripture. Everyone's eyes were filled with envy. The eternal fist scripture could be considered the top Dao technique of the Huangji clan. This Dao technique could allow a cultivator to cultivate to peak eternal overlord in one go. Moreover, cultivators who cultivated the eternal fist scripture were far stronger than ordinary eternal overlords. This was because the eternal fist scripture was an extremely superior Dao technique, even among all eternal level Dao techniques. In the Huangji clan, only the true upper echelons like Huang Wuqi could cultivate the eternal fist scripture. Of course, it was said that the Huangji clan didn't have Dao techniques that surpassed the eternal level. These higher-level Dao techniques were only in the hands of Dao palaces. Therefore, many cultivators with great talent in the Xianmi heavenly domain mostly entered Dao palaces to cultivate and develop better. Everyone sighed and looked at Zhuo Wen with even more pity. As far as they were concerned, Zhuo Wen was dead for sure because Huang Wuqi was too terrifying. While everyone was discussing, Huang Wuqi's fist fell like a meteor and arrived in front of Zhuo Wen. Its target was Zhuo Wen's forehead. Zhuo Wen's eyes were calm. He slowly raised his head and threw out a punch. This time, he directly used the power of the 4-star Pangu's sacred body. Facing a powerful enemy like Huang Wuqi, he couldn't hold back. After all, Huang Wuqi was a peak eternal overlord expert and was much stronger than ordinary peak eternal overlords. Such an expert was definitely a formidable opponent for him. Boom! The moment the two fists collided, a terrifying storm swept out from between the two. It was the aftermath of the collision, a storm formed by the ring-shaped air waves that spread out. Bang! 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 Moreover, the array looked like it was about to collapse. It was obvious how powerful and terrifying the aftermath of the collision between the two was. It should be known that the restriction on the inner city of the Huangji clan was composed of many eternal level array restrictions. An ordinary eternal overlord wouldn't even be qualified to shake this array restriction if he used his full strength. But now, the aftermath of the collision between Huang Wuqi and Zhuo Wen had caused the restriction to shake as if it would be destroyed at any time. How powerful and terrifying were the two's attacks. Everyone was dumbfounded. With Huang Wuqi's strength, they weren't particularly surprised that he could slightly shake the surrounding array restriction. However, the strength that Zhuo Wen displayed was somewhat inconceivable because Zhuo Wen actually blocked Huang Wuqi's attack. Moreover, from the looks of it, the two of them seemed to be evenly matched. Just now, Zhuo Wen had killed dozens of Huangji clan hall masters in one fell swoop, which made them overestimate Zhuo Wen as much as possible. However, due to Huang Wuqi's extraordinary status in the Huangji clan, They subconsciously thought that although Zhuowen was strong, he shouldn't be a match for Huang Wuqi. But now, Zhuowen had proven that everyone had underestimated him. His strength was comparable to Huang Wuqi's, and he wasn't weak at all. Zhuowen and Huang Wuqi both retreated dozens of steps. Huang Wuqi steadied himself and looked at the white-clothed youth in front of him in shock. His punch just now seemed simple, but he had secretly used the power of the Eternal Fist Scripture. With the overbearing power of the Eternal Fist Scripture, even a peak eternal overlord of the same realm would suffer a loss if he took this punch. However, Zhuowen was evenly matched with him. This made Huang Wuqi finally start to take Zhuowen seriously. What kind of power did you use just now? No matter how heaven-defying Dao Yuan Master is, it's impossible to have such terrifying power. Huang Wuqi's eyes were gloomy as he asked in a deep voice, "It's none of your business." Zhuowen responded lazily. Huang Wuqi flew into a rage. Zhuowen had angered him time and time again, which made Huang Wuqi extremely disgusted with Zhuowen. Chapter 2774. The Great War with Huang Wuqi. Since you won't tell me, I'll kill you and extract your divine soul. When the time comes, I'll use the soul-searching technique to find out what secrets you have. Huang Wuqi coldly snorted. Like a ferocious tiger descending from the mountain, he rushed out explosively and headed towards Zhuowen. Huang Wuqi's speed was too fast, far exceeding the speed of sound. When he arrived in front of Zhuowen, the trajectory of his body set off ripples and airwaves. Zhuowen was not afraid. Huang Wuqi was shocked, but he was also shocked. After advancing to the 4-star Panga sacred body, Zhuowen deeply felt that the power of the 4-star Panga sacred body was much stronger than that of the 3-star Panga sacred body. It was a qualitative change in strength, not a step-by-step kind of strength. Zhuowen thought that his strength should be above Huang Wuqi's, but he did not expect that when he used his full strength, he was only on par with Huang Wuqi. Moreover, Zhuowen also found that Huang Wuqi did not use his full strength just now. In other words, if Huang Wuqi had used his full strength, the exchange just now would not have been a tie, but he would have been at a disadvantage. Huang Wuqi's strength was only ranked 4th in the Huangji family. In front of Huang Wuqi, there were Huang Lin, Huang Shan, and the unfathomable Huang Wu. Now, that Huang Wuqi was so difficult to deal with, there was no need to mention the stronger 3 masters of the Huangji family. Thinking of this, Zhuowen's heart sank. At the same time, he was more eager to become stronger. Bang, bang, bang. In the process of Zhuowen's thinking, Huang Wuqi's attack had already arrived, but Zhuowen went against the flow, resisting Huang Wuqi with the power of the 4-star Pangu sacred body. Every time the two collided, the aftermath of the ripples was extremely terrifying, like a huge wave in the sea. The two fought from the sky to the ground, and from the ground to the sky. As the two fought fiercely, the surrounding formation Tao restriction became even more unstable, like a candle in the wind, and would be destroyed. As for the onlookers, they had long since hidden far away, not daring to get close to the center of the battle. The more they looked, the more surprised they became, and the source of their surprise was Zhuowen. Zhuowen's strength was beyond everyone's imagination. Not only did he block Huang Wuqi's attack, but he also fought with Huang Wuqi for hundreds of rounds without being defeated. However, as the battle continued, Zhuowen gradually fell into a disadvantage. This was because Huang Wuqi had used the strongest move of the Eternal Fist Scripture. This move was endless, as if it was eternal. It could be said that when Huang Wuqi used this move, his power would always be at its strongest state, as if he would never be exhausted. Moreover, the more Huang Wuqi fought, the braver he became. His strength seemed to be constantly increasing. Although the increase was not great, with the accumulation of time, Huang Wuqi's advantage against Zhuowen was constantly increasing. It was precisely because of this bit-by-bit accumulation that Zhuowen's decline became greater and greater. Zhuowen also noticed this, and his heart became more and more gloomy. He knew that if this continued, he would definitely lose in less than 100 rounds. Huang Wuqi's eternal fist scripture was very difficult to deal with. Every time he punched, he would leave a powerful fist mark in the air. Moreover, this fist mark seemed to be eternal, staying in the air without any reduction in power. Huang Wuqi and Zhuowen fought for hundreds of rounds, leaving hundreds of fist marks in the surroundings. The hundreds of fist marks around Huang Wuqi seemed to form some kind of domain. Being in this fist mark domain, Huang Wuqi's strength increased by quite a bit, while Zhuowen's strength was constantly reduced. Under this situation, Zhuowen knew that he would eventually be defeated. The onlookers obviously also noticed Zhuowen's situation, and they all shook their heads in their hearts. This Zhuowen is destined to be defeated. Although this Zhuowen is defeated, it's still honorable to be able to fight with the crown prince to this extent. This boy can die without regrets. Everyone sighed in their hearts, and many of them felt that it was a pity. Zhuowen was only a Dao Yuan master now, and he already had such strength. If he was given time, Zhuowen would definitely be a peerless overlord in the future. It was just a pity that Zhuowen was about to be killed by Huang Wuqi before he could grow up. Bang, bang, bang. Zhuowen and Huang Wuqi fought for another 100 rounds, and the number of fist marks around Huang Wuqi increased by a lot, and his strength also increased by a lot. Finally, Huang Wuqi suddenly shouted and threw out a punch. The fist marks around Huang Wuqi condensed together, turning into a spiral force, and blasted towards Zhuowen's heart. This spiral energy was extremely powerful. When Zhuowen threw a punch, his right fist was only able to block it for a moment before it was turned into mush by the spiral energy. Moreover, the spiral force was extremely difficult to deal with. After crushing Zhuowen's right fist, it began to spread to Zhuowen's right arm like a meat grinder. After a while, Zhuowen's right arm was also smashed into a bloody mist, and it gradually threatened Zhuowen's heart. Looking at Zhuowen's miserable state, everyone sighed softly. They knew that Zhuowen's defeat was certain. He was probably going to be smashed into pieces and die without a burial place. Under everyone's gaze, the spiral force crushed Zhuowen's entire body like a hot knife through butter. Zhuowen's Pangu's sacred body was indeed powerful, but after all, he was only at the 4-star realm. His realm was not small compared to Huang Wuqi's. In addition, Huang Wuqi had accumulated hundreds of fist marks using the eternal fist scripture. Now that all these fist marks had exploded in an instant, the power was too terrifying. It was enough to kill any peak eternal overlord expert. Even a half-step god of creation would most likely sustain heavy injuries in the face of the power of this fist. If Zhuowen's Panga sacred body had reached the 5-star realm, although the explosive power of the fist marks was terrifying, it would not have caused Zhuowen's body to collapse. Unfortunately, Zhuowen's Panga sacred body had just advanced to the 4-star realm. Huang Wuqi looked at Zhuowen, who had exploded into a bloody mist, and sighed softly in his heart. During the battle with Zhuowen, he had even begun to doubt his own strength and realm. He was actually on par with a cultivator who was only a Dao Yuan master. Now that he had completely killed Zhuowen, he had finally gotten rid of a big problem in his heart. What a pity! Some of the cultivators among the spectators shook their heads and felt sorry for Zhuowen. Of course, more people raised their arms and cheered for Huang Wuqi's victory. Huang Wuqi raised his head high, revealing a proud expression. He glanced at Zhuowen, who had been blasted into a bloody mist by him, and suddenly grabbed with his right hand. In that instant, he had only destroyed Zhuowen's body. As for Zhuowen's soul, he knew that it was still intact. Chapter 2775. Uproar in the Huangji clan, however. The moment his right hand reached into the blood mist, he felt an ominous premonition in his mind. Then, a blade light swept out from the blood mist and slashed on Huang Wuqi's palm. Huang Wuqi was caught off guard, and his right hand was directly cut off. However, Huang Wuqi reacted quickly and dodged in time. Otherwise, the blade light would not have just cut off his hand, but his entire body. Huang Wuqi quickly treated the wound on his right arm and found that the speed of regenerating his severed arm was extremely slow. He knew that the blade light just now was not simple. Huang Wuqi quickly retreated and stared at the blood mist. At this moment, the blood mist quickly shrank and immediately squirmed, recondensing into a body. This body was none other than Zhuowen. Zhuowen opened his eyes and quickly took out a white robe and put it on. He used his right hand as a blade and quickly slashed out several times. Each blade light was extremely sharp. Zhuowen was using the sky-splitting blade. After his Pangu sacred body was promoted to 4-star, the power of the Pangu flag's profound meaning had also increased to another level. The current sky-splitting blade was no longer what it used to be. Huang Wuqi's remaining left arm formed a fist and fiercely punched out, bursting out a terrifying fist mark. He had used the eternal fist scripture again. Huang Wuqi shattered several blade lights, and when he was about to receive the last blade light, he let out a blood-curdling scream as his left arm was chopped off. Retreat! Huang Wuqi was covered in cold sweat and immediately retreated. At the same time, he cursed in his heart. Zhuowen was so insidious that he had kept such a powerful move. Of course, Huang Wuqi was even more surprised that Zhuowen had been blasted into a blood mist by his fist mark. How did he reconstruct his body in an instant? Even for him, if his physical body was blasted into a bloody mist and his spirit was not destroyed, it would take him at least several hours to reconstruct his physical body. As for reconstructing his physical body in an instant, he had never heard of such a thing. However, Zhuowen was not surprised. His Pangu sacred body was integrated with the Gomong parasite. Not only did the Gomong parasite upgrade his Pangu sacred body, but it also gave him an extremely powerful self-healing ability. The self-healing ability was extremely powerful. Even if his soul was destroyed, as long as there was a trace of it, Zhuowen could still rely on the self-healing ability of the Gomong parasite. If he wanted to kill Zhuowen, the only way to destroy Zhuowen's way was to the point that he could not kill translation. Otherwise, Zhuowen was like a cockroach that could not be killed. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. The moment Huang Wuqi retreated, he immediately used his ultimacy, Hong Meng Everlasting. Hong Meng Wuji instantly evolved a powerful restrictive force. Under the effect of Hong Meng Wuji, the retreating Huang Wuji paused for a moment. During this momentary pause, Zhuowen was like a fish swimming against the current, instantly slashing out more than 10 sky-splitting blades. So many sky-splitting blades shrouded Huang Wuji, and even though the latter was constantly struggling, he was still able to take out a useful divine artifact from his spirit ring. But under the chi-splitting blades, all of them were destroyed like paper. When Huang Wuji was at the end of his rope, he could only watch in despair as more than a dozen chi-splitting blades entered his body and tore him into countless pieces. Puchi, the moment he killed Huang Wuji, Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale. Using more than a dozen chi-splitting blades at once was beyond what Zhuowen could bear. At this moment, he suffered the backlash of the profound and became extremely weak. Fortunately, he killed Huang Wuji in the end and got rid of this future trouble. The surroundings were terrifyingly quiet. Everyone stared at the scene in a daze. They were sluggish and had yet to recover from Huang Wuqi's death. "Get lost." Zhuowen looked at the group of onlookers and said this one word. Suddenly, the people around him scattered like monkeys when the tree fell, and they all disappeared. The strongest hall masters of the Huangji aristocratic family had been killed, and even Huang Wuqi had died. Now, the first head and second head of the Huangji aristocratic family were not in the Huangji aristocratic family, and the third head, Huang Lin, had left for a period of time. Now, in the Huangji family, who could be the opponent of this white-clothed demon? The restriction on the surface of the Huangji family's inner city is quite stubborn. It will take me some time to break it. Fortunately, Huang Lin is not in the Huangji family. Otherwise, I would have to use Hou Yi's divine arrow. Zhuowen looked at his true body, who was still breaking the restriction not far away. His eyes flickered as he muttered to himself. When he made such a big movement, only Huang Wuqi appeared. Huang Lin did not show up at all. He knew that Huang Lin should not be in the Huangji family. As for where exactly Huang Lin had gone, Zhuowen had no idea. "Let's go to the treasury." Zhuowen looked at his true body, who was still breaking the restriction. After hesitating for a moment, he put his true body away and entered the depths of the Huangji family. Previously, when his spirit came out of the sun-moon demonic mirror, he knew that the place where the sun-moon demonic mirror was placed was a treasury. He guessed that it should be a very important treasury of the Huangji family. Since Huang Wuqi was killed by him, and Huang Lin was not in the Huangji family, Zhuowen set his sights on the treasury. Hou Yi's divine arrow was a glutton. The resources needed to shoot an arrow were too terrifying. Moreover, the more energy there was, the more powerful the Hou Yi's divine arrow would be. Now, he was lacking resources. After all, the Huangji family was a Dao Mansion level force. There must be a lot of resources inside. Moreover, the three masters were not here. How could he let go of such an opportunity to plunder? Following his memory, Zhuowen arrived in front of the treasury. Zhuowen had studied the structure of the treasury before he left. Zhuowen only took 15 minutes to break the door of the treasury. When he opened the door of the treasury, he unceremoniously put everything he saw inside into the macro world. It had to be said that the Huangji family was worthy of being a Dao Mansion level force. The resources inside were enormous. Even Zhuowen, who was used to seeing such things, was surprised. Zhuowen spent several hours plundering. When he finished plundering the treasury, he suddenly punched out and destroyed the entire treasury. The treasury was located at the top of the Huangji family's inner city palace. When he destroyed the treasury, a big hole was broken in the top of the palace, which alarmed many disciples of the Huangji family. Many disciples were unable to restrain their anger. However, when they saw that the initiator was Zhuowen, all of them were dejected like withered grass. They did not dare to step forward to stop Zhuowen. This palace doesn't need to exist anymore. Zhuowen rushed out of the palace and looked down at the huge palace in front of him. This was the symbolic building of the Huangji family. Today, Zhuowen had completely fallen out with the Huangji family. Therefore, he would not be polite. He would also destroy the palace and teach the Huangji family a lesson. Thinking of this, Zhuowen summoned the Thunder Fire Sword, Blood Immortal Sword, and Death Sacrifice Sword. He ordered them to tear down the huge palace. Meanwhile, he began to silently continue to break the restriction of the inner city. Boom. Chapter 2776. Lei Liqian Thunder God Garden. A powerful force nurtured in the endless thunder territory, was well known in the host territory. Thunder God Garden was also a Tao Palace level force, but it could be said to be one of the strongest among the Tao palaces, ranking even higher than the Huangji family. At this moment, in the core of the Lightning God's Garden, the Lightning God's Garden Master, Lei Litian, was sitting on the seat of honor in the main hall. His right hand was tapping on the right armrest, and an imposing aura was emitted from his body. Sitting in the seats below the hall were two men whose auras were no weaker than Lei Litian's. Of these two men, one was a bald man with a smile on his face, while the other was a middle-aged man with a pot-belly. If Zhuowen were here, he would recognize these two men at a glance. They were none other than the Huangji family's first master, Huang Wu, and second master, Huang Shan. Brother Huang Wu, you came to my Thunder God Garden from afar, just to ask for two people? The stiff atmosphere in the hall only lasted for a moment before Lei Litian finally spoke. Huang Wu smiled and cupped his fists towards Lei Litian. Garden Master Lei, I have already explained the whole story clearly. My 3 sons died in the 8 heavens, and Fire Plume and Steel Plume of Purple Red House seem to be witnesses. The Purple Red House is a vassal force of the Thunder God Garden. That's why I came all the way here to pay you a visit. I hope that the Thunder God Garden Lord can give me some face and allow me to bring these two people back to the Huangji clan for investigation. Lei Litian snorted coldly, still tapping on the armrest, but he remained indifferent and did not answer. Huang Wu did not feel embarrassed at all, still smiling as he took out a very delicate brocade box from his spirit ring and handed it to Lei Litian. Lei Litian raised his brow and took the small brocade box calmly. After checking it casually, a dignified look appeared in his eyes. Brother Huang Wu, you're really generous. You're actually willing to give out eternal pills for 2 people. You're quite bold. Lei Litian said with interest. Huang Wu smiled slightly, but did not speak. He knew that the moment he took out the eternal pill, Lei Litian would definitely agree to take away Fire Plume and Steel Plume. The eternal pill was similar to the Destiny pill. It could help Lord Profound Secrets cultivate and increase his chances of becoming an eternal lord. Moreover, if an eternal overlord used an eternal pill to cultivate, it would be more effective than using a heavenly Tao origin crystal. It could be said that eternal pills were extremely precious, even for a Tao prefect level force like the Huangji clan. Although they had a lot of eternal pills, it definitely wasn't a lot. Seeing Huang Wu take out an eternal pill, Lei Litian felt very satisfied in his heart. As for Fire Plume and Steel Plume, they were nothing more than ants in Lei Litian's eyes. Exchanging the lives of 2 ants for these eternal pills, in Lei Litian's opinion, was completely worth it. In fact, it even exceeded his expectations. Master Lei, you won't stop us from heading to the Purple Red House now, right? Huang Wu asked with a smile. Lei Litian nodded slightly and said, After all, the Purple Red House is a vassal force of my Lightning God's Garden. As long as you don't go too far, I won't interfere. Huang Wu smiled. This was exactly what he wanted. With his and Huang Shan's strength, entering the Purple Red House and capturing them would be a piece of cake. He was mainly afraid that Lei Litian would obstruct them. Now that he had dealt with Lei Litian, taking down Fire Plume, and Steel Plume was naturally in the bag. But soon, Huang Wu's expression changed. Big brother, what's wrong? Huang Shan noticed Huang Wu's expression and asked in surprise. Huang Wu's face was gloomy as he said, The soul I left in Xing, his body disappeared. Huang Shan's pupils shrank. He had long known that Huang Wu had left a soul in the galaxy of stars. This primordial spirit was left in Huang Xinghe's soul. In other words, if Huang Xinghe's soul was destroyed, Huang Wu would immediately know. Who is so bold? Who dares to kill Xing He? Huang Shan's gaze became unfriendly. Huangwu took a deep breath and said coldly, "No matter who it is, we have to rush back now." Huang Shan was stunned and said, hesitantly, "Big brother, aren't we going to the Purple Red House? After all, the purpose of our trip is to take away the Fire Plume and Steel Plume." Huangwu said, "There's no hurry." Then Huangwu cupped his hands at Lei Litian and said, "Master Lei, there's a situation in the Huangji family. We might have to make a trip back first and take the two away later. I'm sure Master Lei will agree." "No problem. Brother Huangwu, you can come at any time. My lightning God's garden welcomes you," Lei Litian said with a fake smile. Huangwu cupped his hands and hurriedly left with Huang Shan. Lei Litian silently looked at Huangwu and Huang Shan's backs as they left. His eyes flickered with interest. "Go and investigate what happened in the Huangji family. After you're done, come back and report to me." Lei Litian flicked his finger, and a bolt of lightning shot out from his fingertip. On the stone sculpture behind him, a man slowly appeared amidst the flickering lightning. That person knelt on one knee on the ground, bowed respectfully, and then disappeared on the spot. After Zhuowen destroyed the Huangji family's core palace and the array formation, he directly left the inner city. The outer city of the Huangji family was very big, but it was very chaotic now. Zhuowen's destruction of the Huangji family's core palace had caused a huge uproar. Everyone was in chaos. Zhuowen ignored the chaotic scene. The direction he was heading towards was the Huangji family's teleportation array. The distance between the Lightning God's Garden and the Huangji family was very far. With the speed of Zhuowen's space-time roulette, it would take him several years to reach there. Therefore, if he wanted to reach the Lightning God's Garden in a short period of time, Zhuowen could only rely on the Huangji family's teleportation array. The Huangji family's main teleportation array was built in the outer city. When Zhuowen arrived at the location of the teleportation array, the cultivators of the Huangji family guarding the teleportation array did not say a word and attacked Zhuowen. Unfortunately, Zhuowen's current strength was too terrifying. Although there were many cultivators, the strongest was only the Master of Destiny. They could not even withstand a single move from Zhuowen, and were all destroyed by Zhuowen. Landing in the huge teleportation array, Zhuowen immediately used the primordial everlasting and took out a considerable amount of heavenly law origin crystals. He placed them on the teleportation array and immediately activated it. However, Zhuowen's eyes quickly darkened, because when he activated the teleportation array, he discovered that there was a teleportation fluctuation coming from the teleportation array.